Hey everybody, it's Carl. Welcome to Carl's Opinion, and tonight is our Thursday night live call-in show. We're discussing immigration, Trump payback time, and open topic. So if you guys want to call in on another topic, that's what it says, open topic. So hey, happy to have you guys aboard, and we got a lot of news to cover tonight. Lots of news going on right now. Donald Trump taking not just a victory lap, which is good, but he's doing a lot more than that. He's actually, laying out the framework to start going after the mainstream media, also to start going after the guys who are behind this whole mess to begin with, namely President Obama's intelligence chiefs, Clapper, Brennan, Comey, guys who knew better, guys who knew this dossier hadn't been vetted, hadn't been verified, but yet shoved it out there, in the hopes that, one, it would have enough traction prior to the election, and somebody would pick it up and run with it, and that would cause Donald Trump to lose the election. Or two, the insurance policy, which they wrote. Can't believe people still write things down when they don't want to when they want to keep it a secret. The insurance policy, meaning that if he did get elected, we would then try to release it after he got elected to try to take his administration down, either through impeachment or just to make it so impossible for him to govern, considering he'd be constantly under investigation. He wouldn't be able to get anything done, and then obviously Democrats could win back control of the House and the Senate in 2018 midterms, and then, of course, win back the White House in 2020. And then, of course, they also bounced around the idea of the 25th Amendment, which is stupid because anybody who knows anything about the 25th Amendment knows it's actually harder to get that done than to get an impeachment done. Impeachment only requires majority in the House, and then then it requires 2/3 in the Senate. 25th Amendment requires a 2/3 majority in both the House and the Senate. So I'm not quite sure what their plan was on that. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get to it here. We'll just cut on over. Let's make sure I'm in the right place. Nope. Okay. There we go. All right. Here we go. All right. So payback time. Trump and the GOP moved to hold Dems media accountable for collusion hoax. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you can't just let the people walk away on this. This is nonsense. So, somebody's got to pay the price. Hey, Bogart. Yeah, I'm going to put the call-up number here in a couple of minutes. And Bogart Brand. And then El Free Americano. How you doing? And Model Nutty. Hey, there's Model Nutty. How you doing there, Mr. Nutty? And, I'm up Schiff Creek without Adam Paddle. Refused to resign when I lost the whole battle. Lying and leaking all along. Trying to rattle. Now I'm up Schiff Creek without Adam Paddle. Hey, that was excellent. I got to give you a shout on that one. That was good. That was excellent. That was a great poem there, Mr. Nutty. Great poem indeed. But, I'll put the call-in number here in just a couple of seconds. I'm just going to run through the story real quick. And anyway, here's from the Washington Times. So the presidential payback machine kicked into high gear Thursday as President Trump and his Republican allies sought to hold accountable opponents in government and the media who propelled phony allegations of collusion with Russia. I tell you what, let's go ahead and just put we'll put the phone number up right now. Let's go ahead and get that done. Hold on. Boom. There you go. All right, there you go. This is the phone number if you want to call in. Phone number is 775-273-8970. If you want to appear in a live video link, courtesy of, well, not courtesy of, I pay for it, VMix Video Productions at vmix.com. You just send me an email. I send you a link. You push a couple of buttons. Well, you just push a couple of things on your phone or your laptop, and you're in. So there you go. But anyway, you can call in at 775-273-8970. And there you go. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going on the story here. So, here's a quote from Rudolph Giuliani. "We've got to hold the people to account who did it as a deterrent to anybody doing it again." Trump attorney Rudolph Giuliani told the Washington Times after meeting with the president, "This wasn't an accident. This was a deliberately conceived plot that was carried along in a malicious way." Mr. Trump and congressional Republicans demanded the ouster of Representative Adam Schiff, California Democrat and chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Mr. Schiff, an unrepentant promoter of the Russia accusations, despite Special Counsel Robert Mueller's conclusion that no Americans conspired with Moscow's efforts to meddle in the 2016 election. Yeah, I mean, he's still out there saying, oh, it's in plain sight. Oh, I've seen it. Well, he's seen it, but he's like, I guess he must have some kind of weird crystal ball because Robert Mueller didn't see it, and his entire team of lawyers and FBI agents couldn't see it. And with the 50 wiretaps and the 500 subpoenas, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, I guess they couldn't see it. Anyway, Mr. Schiff should be forced to resign from Congress, said a Twitter message from Mr. Trump. He said the lawmaker spent 2 years knowingly and unlawfully lying and leaking. The president and his supporters The president and his supporters are targeting former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, former FBI agent Peter Strzok, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and others. They're also calling into question, this is important, whether President Obama knew about or approved the FBI investigation of the Trump campaign, which began in summer 2016. Mr. Obama was campaigning hard for Democrat Hillary Clinton to beat Mr. Trump. So there you go. Here's the famous question. What did the president know, to wit President Obama, and when did he know it? Ta-da! Sound familiar? I mean, hey, the mainstream media's been talking about Watergate, bringing on all these experts from the Watergate era, saying how this is worse than Watergate. Well, let's get a good question. I believe that was Jim Baker from Tennessee, who was a senator at the time, who asked that question. What did the president know, and when did he know it? So what did Mr. Obama know, and when did he know it? We know for sure the chief of staff was briefed. We know from Strzok's and Lisa Page's text messages that the president wanted to be briefed on this. Well, if he wanted to be briefed on it, and the chief of staff was getting briefed on it, then it's not too big of a stretch to say he was being briefed. The President Obama was being briefed on it and was being involved in it. Remember, who was it, Susan Rice? She sent herself that weird email literally 1 hour before Donald Trump was sworn in. She was one of the few people left of the White House, and she sent some funky email to herself regarding a meeting they had in January, before the inauguration. But she sent it to herself on Inauguration Day, literally an hour before President Trump got sworn in. Once he got sworn in, he was the president. Right up until that point, President Obama was still the president. It was like a CYA kind of email. I mean, that's definitely worth looking into. Mr. Giuliani said in an interview that he believes the Justice Department is capable of investigating its own actions, possibly with a task force of hand-picked agents who don't have significant political involvement. Hey, it's Lynn. Hey, great douchebag. Hey, everybody. How you guys doing? It should be, and then Giuliani went on to say, it should be done by Justice Department and the FBI because they should be given a chance to straighten themselves out, he said. I know that the vast majority of the Justice Department, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or Independents, are honest people. These are just the politicians at the top that were corrupted. Mr. Giuliani said he hasn't seen the confidential Mueller report. The president told reporters that he hasn't seen the report either, although he said it has a beautiful conclusion. I wish you could have got it in 1 week instead of taking 2 years, but the result was great. No obstruction, no collusion, no anything, Mr. Trump said on his way to a campaign rally in Michigan. The Mueller report's findings of no collusion really, quote, really makes the vindication that much more powerful, Mr. Giuliani said, because Mr. Mueller's team included 8 or 9 people who are highly partisan Democrats. These people tried every dirty trick you could try to catch Mr. Trump, he said, and they couldn't, which means it didn't happen. He said an investigation of the origins of the FBI's Russia probe is very, very necessary because, as the president says, we have to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's a very, very serious thing to create, support, maintain, and exaggerate false charges against any president of the United States, Mr. Giuliani said. You're hurting the country. The people who were involved in it and did things like sign false affidavits, omit facts that they normally wouldn't, or change facts, the most generous thing I could say about them is they lost all perspective. They may be more educated, but they were affected by the same psychological syndrome that drove people after Mr. Trump was elected to go to psychiatrists. Yeah, I think the psychiatrist actually gave a diagnosis of Trump anxiety disorder. GT, what did I miss? Okay, I'll just throw the headline back up real quick. There you go. See, Yeah, I was just talking about how Trump and the GOP are moving to hold the Democrats and the media accountable for the collusion hoax. So there you go. Call-in number is 775-273-8970. And we'll just run back down to where we left off. I wish you... let's see. There we go. In an appearance on Fox News with Sean Hannity on Wednesday night, Mr. Trump questioned aloud whether Mr. Obama knew of or approved the investigation of Donald Trump's campaign. Why didn't President Obama and the Obama administration do something when they were informed about Russia and the election, the president said. A spokesman for Mr. Obama didn't respond to a request for comment. Mr. Obama said he told Russian President Vladimir Putin to cut it out, quote unquote, during a face-to-face meeting in September 2016. Mr. Trump said he will leave it to Attorney General William Barr and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, South Carolina Republican, to decide on any investigations into the origins of the government's probe of the Trump campaign. Mr. Graham has called for a second special counsel to look into the matter and said he plans to call witnesses such as Mr. Comey to answer questions in Judiciary Committee hearings. Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky Republican, just to let you know, we don't take any unknown person phone calls, so if you're calling in as an unknown person, we don't take your phone call. You need to call from a phone number that is not blocked. Thank you. Okay. Area code 506, you're on. Yeah. Yeah, who's this? I'm sorry, who? I can like not make you out. Let me see if I turn this up a little. Hold on. Well, I got you. I got you all the way up. So yeah, I can really hear you. You got to speak up into the phone. Yeah, go ahead. What do you got? Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, have a good one. Well, a couple of trolls trying to call in there on the live call-in show. Always an amusing time on the live call-in show. So it's Pastor Ken Hopper. But anyway, Dynasty, how you doing? International Intel Nin, how you doing? GT, of course, how you doing? Why can't you listeners hear your callers? Well, we have the ability to screen our callers, and so sometimes we have people who wish to put some nasty crap on the site, and we keep those people off. So we screen the calls, and that's how, thank you very much, Intel Thin, for informing that person. Here we go. Let's see. This person, I believe this person tried calling in the other night. Hey, this is Carl. I believe it's area code 509. Yeah, what can I do for you, Clayton? Uh-huh. Yeah, go ahead. Hey, are you in the chat room right now? Are you in the chat room right now? Who are you in the chat? Oh, okay. All right, well, go ahead. No, of course not. All right. Well, hey, thanks for calling. All right. And I believe no, I don't know who that was that actually was calling. I'm not sure what his name was. I couldn't quite make him out. But anyway, so there you go. So that's mean. We shall see. Hear the caller. Well, I'm not sure where he was. I'm not sure where he was going. I'm not sure he knew where he was going, but that's okay. So hey, again, it's a live call-in show, but we got to keep it clean for YouTube. So what was he saying? Well, obviously, if I say what he was saying, then it makes no sense why I was screening him out. Now, does it? So there you go. But anyway, yeah, I got to keep it clean for YouTube. That's the last thing I need is something crappy to get on the site, and YouTube's trying to do their best to crack down on conservative commentary. This obviously is a conservative commentary site, and so yeah, Bishop, I don't know if he was a troll or not. All I know is just he was kind of going off somewhere that I'd rather not go on the site. Again, YouTube is looking for any excuse. I saw an article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, about Facebook is cracking down on. Before it was just cracking down on white supremacists. Now they're defining if you're a white nationalist. They're cracking down on that. They're trying to ban people off Facebook for that. Define what a white nationalist is. I have no idea. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're. And they said, well, we're still not going to take people off if they're proud of their ethnic heritage. Well, again, I don't know what that means. So I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to kind of you have to be better safe than sorry. Okay, when you're dealing with let's see. Well, that's nice. Okay. Okay. Boom. Hey. There you go. All right. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Anytime. So there you go. Oh no, you don't say. Well, that shit happens. There you go. Well, again, like I said, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. So there you go. But anyway, it's just one of those things. Again, we're trying to get we're trying to get a message out here, and we can't have people on, trying to poison that message. So, there you go. So that's the best thing I can tell you. And let's see. All right, let's go ahead and cut over here to me real quick. Well, all right, and let's see here. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a live call-in show. I have no problem taking calls, and let's see. Let's see real quick. So there we go. Like I said, I have no problem taking phone calls. I have no problem putting people on the site. I do that all the time. But at the same point in time, I can't let people get on the site who are going to kind of go off in some kind of weird direction and kind of be irrational. And I mean, I can't have that on the site. Next thing I know, I got YouTube cracking down on me looking for an excuse, saying, and I'm not even that big. We don't have to be that big. Axe wasn't that big when they jumped on his ass, and he had to do another channel. And we all remember that, when he had to go from Axe Truth over to Still the Truth. And he was, what do you have, maybe 5,000, 6,000 subs at the time? And they jumped on his shit. And then he had to bounce over to another site. So, we don't want to give him any excuses to remove us off the site. I mean, look, we don't run Google, we don't run YouTube. The leftists run Google, the leftists run YouTube. And they're private companies. They've already been sued. They've been successful in lawsuits in the U.S. District Court against Prager University filed a big lawsuit, and the attorney law firm they hired was Pete Wilson's old law firm. Pete Wilson's name was still on the law firm, and they went to U.S. District Court, and it was a big mess. And the U.S. District Court judge ruled in YouTube and Google's favor, and they got that on appeal right now to the Ninth Circuit. It's not like Donald Trump appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which gets heard by the Supreme Court right away, or gets heard right away by the Ninth Circuit. That case is still sitting in appeal. In the Ninth Circuit. That's a year later because it's not a priority type case. So, I mean, that's the reality of the situation we live in, and we all have to be cognizant of that fact. Unless you got, $20 billion sitting around and you can start your own YouTube channel, this is the platform we sit on. And that's, people want to go to BitChute and stuff like that in Mines. I've been over to Mines. That site sucks. Anybody who's been over there will tell you. I mean, it's totally awful. BitChute, I mean, the same thing. The comment section is terrible. The live chat is awful. The way you have to download material on that site is terrible. This is it. This is what we got. And it's one of those things where, hey, I wish it was better. I wish we had a conservative billionaire like Mercer could put together a YouTube channel. Fantastic. But until that time, this is what we have, and we have to live with it, and we have to live within it. So that's the best I can tell you. That's the best I can tell you. So that's the way it has to be. So if you want to start your own channel, let me tell you, it is not hard to start a YouTube channel. Now, to do with the production stuff and to get into that and the sound and the microphones, it takes a lot of stuff. It takes a lot of work. But as far as like Sticks and Hammer does, who's got like 350,000 subs, Sticks and Hammer basically has a phone and probably a mic on top of the phone, and that's it. And he does it every morning. He has 350,000 subs. So, okay, you know what? Here you go. Jesus Christ. Hey, you know what? If you don't want to be if you just want to come to the channel and criticize, then, go somewhere else. I don't need it. So, you want to put all this together. You want to put the sound system together. You want to put the cameras together, the phone system together and Skype together. You want to do all that work? Go for it. Do it. Okay? I actually have a full-time job, and I still do this. So if you want to just come on the site and criticize, go somewhere else. Okay? Those who can do, those who can't criticize. So go somewhere else and, start your own site. I don't care. Just, you don't need to be here. Let's see. Who's this? Yeah, this is Carl. Go ahead. Area code 515. I'm doing good. What's your name? Hey, Willie. Des Moines, Illinois. Yeah, what can I do for you? Well, yeah, go ahead and expand on what you were saying. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Don't make no sense to me. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Wait, I'm sorry. What were you saying? Unbelievable. All right, look, here's the deal. Okay, so, if I don't know you, I ain't let you on the damn phone. Okay, I don't need this tonight. I really don't. So, that's just the way it's going to be. So if you call it in, I don't know you, plan on not getting through. So, period. Like I said, I got a full-time job, and it isn't this, okay? I put a lot of time and effort into this, and I really don't need the shit, okay? If you want to call and be a dumb shit, go somewhere else. Go some fucking where else. Period. Okay? Put together your own work. Jesus Christ. So, if you're calling in, I don't know you, you ain't getting through. So don't waste your time calling. Hey, Effie, this is Carl.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Mr. Carl.
How you doing, young lady?
I thought I would call in so you could hear a familiar voice tonight. How's that sound?
Sounds much better. Thank you very much.
Hi, chat room. Love you guys. I usually call in with questions because you know me, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have I have ideas tonight. Can we talk about ideas instead of questions?
You can talk about ideas, Miss Effie Real. Of course you can.
Okay, I was reading about the First Amendment with regard to the press and its rights. And I was reading a few different treatises on people's opinions on the responsibilities of a free press, and how the First Amendment itself makes no requirement of the press, that the whole thing is a free-for-all, and the idea is the more free speech out there, then basically in the free market of ideas, things will balance themselves out, is kind of the idea.
Exactly. That's the whole point of free speech. Exactly. That the best ideas will rise to the top.
Yeah,
your ideas
just
will
like
be
with
challenged.
people.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so at this point, the only legal issues that we can hold the press accountable to are, libel, and even that is at times iffy, because they can say, well, I have a source, but I can't say what the source is, and things like that. So it's a tough win, even this most recent famous libel suit that they're going to be trying to, the Covington Catholic kids are going to be trying to hold against these, various outlets of media. I think it's an uphill road. I think people think it's a slam dunk, but I think that it's shaky ground constitutionally, isn't it?
Well, actually, it is an uphill road. I mean, they're the plaintiffs; they have the burden of proof, but they're in a much better position. I'll tell you why. Because normally, when you sue for defamation, you're like a public. The famous case, the New York Times versus Sullivan. The issue is the U.S. Supreme Court distinguishes between a public figure and a private actor. And they said when it comes to a public figure, pretty much you have to show malice. You have to show that you intended to do harm. You intentionally, one, the story was false. Okay, it's a false story. And two, you had to have the intent to do harm. It was an intentional act. With a private actor, it still has to be false. The story has to be false because truth is an absolute defense. So, like, if they said Covington kids were just standing there smiling, well, that's true. That's not defamatory. If they say the Covington kids were attacking this guy, were going up to him, were preventing him from moving, that's a false statement. Now, they're a private actor. You don't have to show an intentional act. You can show a negligent act. So these kids were all private actors. These kids weren't public figures. They weren't famous. They were there, waiting for the bus to get there. They were just a group of kids who had gone to the Right to Life protest that day. And so it's a little bit different. Like, say Trump was out there, standing in front of the Capitol, and this Indian came up, and they said, "Oh, Trump was attacking the Indian." Well, that's a much different lawsuit than saying these, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they're juveniles, so that gives them a little extra. They're definitely not. I mean, you can be a juvenile and be a public figure. You can be like a movie star, but these kids were not movie stars. I mean, these kids, they weren't even rich. I mean, they took the bus from what was it, Kentucky, I believe, to D.C. They didn't fly first class, so they weren't even rich kids. I mean, a lot of people think, if you go to a Catholic school, you're rich. I went to a Catholic school. I wasn't rich. In fact, I was on a work scholarship, and a lot of kids are on athletic scholarships or academic scholarships or work scholarships that go to Catholic school, and even the ones that aren't, a lot of times their parents are having to scrape together all kinds of money just to be able to pay the tuition. And then we have all kinds of fundraisers and stuff like that to help offset tuition costs. All kinds of things throughout the year. So these kids are just regular. These are working class, middle class kids. These aren't some rich, snobby kids. It's not like the Brent Kavanaugh guys who were like living in Maryland and stuff, in Virginia, and going to school there. These kids are first of all, they're in Kentucky. Okay, I mean no slight on Kentucky, but these are just regular middle class guys. Working class, middle class kids coming from working class, middle class parents. Parents have to save up, probably tighten the belt just to get them to go to the school. They just want their kids to have a good education, or even a good Catholic education. So it's an uphill battle for a public figure, but not so much of an uphill battle for these children. I mean, they're kids, they're children, they're under 18. So it'll be a little bit easier. It's still going to be a tough case. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a little bit easier. Probably it'll actually be a lot easier than if it was like Donald Trump or Robert De Niro was a plaintiff or something like that.
Yeah, they made that pretty clear. The attorney for these plaintiffs, they made it pretty clear that was a big part of why they had a good case. And they did express that because, they're, of course, doing the interviews and letting us know what's going on, which is nice. But I was thinking more in general of just the fact that the free press has our press in our nation, it has a large umbrella of constitutional protection. And so, any action against the press at all. And we certainly don't want that. We don't want regulation. We don't want them in bed with the government, and we don't want them hindered by the government, and we don't want them told what to think and how to feel, and about whatever political or non-political issue and whatever side we like standards like honesty and truth, but truth can, in some people's opinion, be an opinion.
Right.
So,
there's a fine line between truth and opinion, because you're like, you may.
Oh, in reality,
right.
but people disagree, and that's the problem, and so they can call your facts opinions and vice versa, and it can be very muddied, because it's just like with this most recent travesty of justice with the Smollett case, and the whole people taking a word out of context and therefore referring to him as a victim when everyone involved in the case is saying obviously he's not the victim. It's the waters can get very muddy, and people have a right to say what they want to say, and the press has a right to print what it wants to print. And we, of course, as people who are to the right of center and want to uphold the Constitution for the most part. I know there are people on the left that want to uphold the Constitution, but they're becoming harder to find. But there are some out there, and we want to keep our press free.
Yeah,
I was just wondering. So my idea was more, what about the concept of a free market solution to that? Now, I know the free market solution is, okay, just don't consume that media. But we have effective monopolies in a lot of ways, and that media is supported by interests outside of the United States. So they get, like, for example, the Oprah Winfrey magazine. This is not on the topic of opinion pieces, but just for an example, I know nobody buys that thing. I go in the grocery store and it sits there and looks at me, and then the next month, there's a new pile of Oprah Winfrey magazines there, and nobody's buying them. So obviously somebody's paying the grocery stores to make the space, and the money is coming from somewhere else, which is, of course, her empire, to make it look like everything is as it always was. I mean, I figured that out like 5 years ago. But the other thing we know is these big media companies have international parent companies that are not only, have interest outside of what's best for the U.S., but they're also not beholden to our national laws in a lot of ways. So it's kind of a strange situation that, CNN I don't even know who they're owned by anymore. Somebody said once, and I forgot who it was. But it's, in other words, we're not dealing with small town American newspapers that are at least, they might have a different opinion on what's best, but they do fundamentally want what's best for the country. So I think we're in a strange place now where it's international corporatism, and maybe that is one part of the approach as far as reining in some of the nonsense. I don't know. But what I was thinking is more along the lines of the old movie code, where they self-regulated, where they held themselves to a standard. And it had to do with, because people, like to do business with us if we hold ourselves to a standard. Now, we know Hollywood was full of evil and hypocrisy on the inside. Yeah. But at least on the outside, the product that they produced was held to a standard that they themselves held themselves to. And I know the newspaper industry does have something similar, but I'm just wondering, is that something that can be approached in a more direct way? In other words, lobbied for or grassrooted, in a way, kind of let's hold them to a standard, and what should that standard be? And in a bigger sense than just, I'm not going to watch CNN because CNN is, whatever. But if you can demonstrate, even with a left-wing opinion, if you can demonstrate that you're holding yourself to a certain standard of accountability and even allowing opposite opinions and things like that in your opinion sections, much the way the movie industry did back in the day, it was their choice to do that. And it was based on having a good, it was a free market relationship with their customers. And, basically, how can that be presented? Hey, here's an idea so you stop bleeding all of your audience, which is what you were talking about yesterday. They're bleeding audience. So they need to do something dramatic to regain the trust of the American people.
Well, yeah, and the problem the problem is like as far as being accountable and stuff like that. The problem is, after this Mueller report came out, I mean, they're all just doubling down. I mean, you had like Ari Melber on Monday saying, referring to, well, he wasn't found to be, colluding, a chargeable colluding offense, I mean, he just changed the words of the report to make it sound like, oh, it wasn't up to charge him. Well, that's not what Barr said Mueller said in the report. Mueller said there wasn't anything to establish it. Well, that's even, I mean, they couldn't find anything to establish anything was there was a conspiracy. They couldn't find any facts to say, yeah, this happened. And if you look at the 6 indictments for like the Trump associates and Manafort and Papadopoulos and Stone and all those guys, not one place in any of those indictments does it say this person was talking to this Russian. Not in any one of those indictments. So you see the mainstream media saying, "Oh, well, there wasn't enough to charge," but that wasn't that wasn't it. I mean, they just making this stuff up, and Don Lemon and everybody else coming out and saying, making things up from the report and saying, "Well, they're still out there," and so they have no sense of they have no standards because normally if you got a story that wrong. And you kept saying it over and over again for 2 years, and then it comes out that, hey, you were wrong, and then Giuliani was on Chris Cuomo's show on CNN, and he goes, you should apologize. I have nothing to apologize for. Brian Stelter, we have nothing to apologize for. We were just following the story. Morning Joe Scarborough, same thing. What did you want us to do? How about being investigative journalists? You bring a guest on, you bring a guest on the show. And you say, and you ask him a question, and he gives you an answer. And you say, "Oh, okay, no, that's not what you do." You
that's
him.
What I was thinking, Carl, as part of that contract, so to speak, with America, to borrow a phrase, that maybe it would be exactly that. We, are if there is similar to a movie industry standards, which of course has to do with censoring unpleasant things, but this would be a different sort of set of standards, but exactly that, having to do with, we will investigate before, we will hold on to, sensational things until we actually do a certain level, maybe a tiered kind of system of investigation.
It
seems to me that something could be drawn up.
Well, actually,
it can merely say we're signing it or not signing it, and then the audience will know, okay, they don't want to agree to that, so I'm not going to bother with them because they're not going to hold themselves to any standards.
Right.
It's just a thought.
Well, no, actually, it's a great thought, and actually, you can look at Carl Bernstein. He was one of the reporters for the Washington Post on the Watergate case. Woodward and Bernstein, the famous movie, All the President's Men, and in that movie, you saw Carl Bernstein was played by Dustin Hoffman. And you saw that movie, they were going out to people's houses, they were questioning people, they were interviewing people, they were going to the courthouses, they were on the phone all the time. They were, and Carl Bernstein today is not the same Carl Bernstein he was back in 1972, 73. I mean, he wasn't.
Now he's just a partisan hack.
He was a partisan hack, and he was just sitting there just saying, giving his supposition, not based on any evidence, not based on any investigative reporting. He didn't follow any kind of trails or anything like that. They say, well, it's hard to investigate. Well, I mean, the Nixon administration was hard to investigate also, but somehow they managed to do it. But here they bring a guest on like Brennan or Clapper, and they ask him a question. Of course, he gives them the answer they want to hear. They say, oh, okay. Or they bring on a former assistant U.S. attorney or a former U.S. attorney, and they would just say, oh, I think based on this, this, and this, instead of pushing back and saying, well, wait a second. that doesn't make any sense. Can you explain that? Can you give us some evidence of what you're saying? No, they were just more than happy to hear these people just talk out their ass and say exactly what they all wanted to hear. And now they refuse to even say, oh, we're sorry. They say, well, what would you want us to do? Well, how about like making sure the guests you bring on, you go out, you attack them just as hard as you would attack a Republican coming on your show. Question them, push back.
And another part of that is these that could be maybe a part of the standards and practices for reporters, for journalists, so-called journalists, would be the process of, we're not going to accept anonymous sources, quote unquote, somebody close to somebody who knows somebody who was once married to somebody who was the maid of somebody, told us over, Starbucks the other day,
right?
That kind of stuff. Because it seems like a lot of, nonsense that we hear comes from exactly that sort of source.
Right.
And also along with that, we could add to the list of standards. We have an obligation to report people doing things that are illegal because, in every industry that I'm around, and I'm around more than one because of the nature of what I do and have done for a living. And I end up getting involved with more than one industry because of being involved with computers and things. So I have to learn their industry to be able to help them with their networking and things. So I learn a lot about a lot of places, and one of the things that I learn is that they have standards and that they have the duty to report, for example, in the medical industry and the caregiving industries, and there are laws that it's not just about what they do, but it's what they have knowledge of, and they're responsible. If you have knowledge of, for example, abuse in a care facility, you are responsible legally to report that abuse.
Yeah, just like if you're a teacher and you see a child has bruises, on his body, and they don't look right.
Yes.
You have a duty to report that.
There's a duty to report.
Right.
And so, I was just wondering, in the sense of, hey, you're a reporter, somebody is leaking information that is classified information, for example.
Right.
Shouldn't we have a duty to report in our process? Shouldn't we have that part of at least part of our standards? So, in other words, not report it as, oh, this is a hot story, but report it as in, yeah, this is illegal, and I'm not going to contribute to what's probably damaging to the nation, in the sense that it's classified for a reason. So, just wondering, that could be another thing to add to the list.
That could be. It was like when Rachel Maddow, did that famous, it was almost like Geraldo Rivera's, Al Capone vault. And she did the 2005 Trump tax return. And, she hyped this thing for a couple of weeks. And I remember, it was like, oh, I'm going to bring out the tax return. And it was hyped all day. And it's like, and she goes, oh, I have the tax return. And then, first of all, the fact that she had somebody else's tax return, whoever got that tax return is illegal. I mean, there's all kinds of federal statutes. You can't divulge, someone else's tax return. And so it had to come through the IRS, most likely. And somebody at the IRS leaked, or Department of Treasury leaked it out. Probably some former Obama appointee that was still hanging on, some bureaucrat, some mid-level guy who would print and then, got into the press's hands. I mean, and then she had no shame.
Medical records also, and military records also, which, remember the fake Bush, military letter that got, what's his name from ABC in trouble?
You mean...
remember his name right now.
You mean Dan Rather from CBS? They made a movie about that with... they made a movie with that. Robert Redford played his part, which was a joke. I don't think anybody saw the movie. Maybe 10 people did.
I didn't even know there was one. That's funny.
Exactly. There was one.
They did dig him up during the last election to talk about things, which is kind of interesting. But even he was kind of a little tempered after his, I guess the debacle kind of changed him a bit. But yeah, that was another example. Now, why is it legal for the mainstream, for the media rather, to have illegal documents that would be illegal for anyone else to have? It's illegal for me to look at your medical records or your tax returns or your military records. It's 100% illegal.
Yeah,
How do they keep getting away with that stuff?
I think the case about that, the famous case on that one was the Pentagon Papers when Daniel Eisenberg, I want to say his name was. He was working for the NSA, and he leaked the Pentagon Papers, and they tried to prosecute him, and I think it got thrown out. And I can't remember the holding in that case, but I know he didn't go to prison, so it must have got thrown out. Yeah. The holding was so much to the point where, like, God, I can't remember where. I mean, like, where the press didn't get in trouble for leaking it. I mean, they did make a movie about that. That was the one with Tom Hanks that I didn't see either. And I think Glenn Close, right? And he was playing right. He was playing the part of the editor for the Washington Post. And they had their legal team in there deciding whether or not to release it or not. And they were going back and forth, and they finally released it. Obviously, they didn't go to jail or anything or go to prison. And I forget what the holding was on that, but it was, once it gets out of the bad guy's hands, and then it gets into the press's hands, somehow something magical happens where it's like you're just publishing something that as long as you didn't have any part in getting it or acquiring it, or you didn't like pay some guy, say, hey, I know you work at the NSA, give me some good shit, and here's $50,000 for it. Now I'm going to put it in my newspaper. I think as long as you're not tied to it like that, I think you're immune from liability. I think I'm not up on that, and I haven't read that that decision in a long time.
Which is why I was thinking along the lines of self-governing standards. In other words, here's what we promise not to do. So then, if they get caught doing those things, then it's hey, you're not holding yourself up to your own standards. And if it's an industry-wide thing, like with the movie industry, then you can say, hey, we hold ourselves to the standards. Look what those guys over there are doing. They're not. Right. And it becomes, remember, pride is really a strong motivator too. So if they can say with pride, yeah, we're above board, look what we're doing, it kind of becomes you can make it a bit of a competition, like how ethical can we be? You got to, as a mother, I know there are ways that you can get kids to clean their room if you make it a game.
Yeah, and I think the analogy is appropriate too, because a lot of these journalists, so-called journalists you see on TV, they are like little children, and as soon as they get challenged, they throw a temper tantrum. Sure. As soon as you say, hey, wait, you're wrong, you should apologize, they dig their heels in. I mean, I think your analogy is appropriate in that a lot of these so-called journalists that are on TV, they act like little children. I agree. Yeah.
So in dealing with them in that way, let's just see who can be the most ethical. Let's have some well laid out rules. And here's the rules now. Here's the new standards and practices. Self-imposed, completely voluntary, but everybody that's not going to do it, we're going to know who you are.
Yeah.
And your competitors will be able to point that out too. So you better get on the ethics train. And in the meantime, when they do a really foul thing, then you've got something to hold them accountable to. Even and it's still all within the confines of volunteer and free speech, and not the government imposing anything. And nobody has to, no lawsuits have to happen. This is all the court of public opinion based on, them competing for, the ethics award. So, just a thought. I mean,
well, actually, it would be nice if that it could become a reality. Unfortunately, I think you and I both know that's probably not going to happen. Sad but true.
Well, things only happen when people keep repeating them and getting them out there. And hey, I think one day the fair tax could happen, but that's just me.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's I was pushing for that at one time myself, but it works here in Florida. Oh, your state income tax is a fair tax. So in other words, you don't. Tell me how that works. Go ahead.
We have no income tax in Florida.
Okay, so it's just all straight sales tax.
Yes.
Okay, so
it's all consumption, and we've gotten rid of also the extra fees for getting your vehicle registration. You renew your registration, and it's pretty inexpensive because we don't have to do the inspection fees and the other things that we used to do. So things have really.
Well, one good thing about the consumption tax is that it gets even to the black market money, as far as like the drug dealers' money and stuff like that. Because when they go out and buy something,
absolutely, and the illegals' money. Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a lot of illegals here in Florida.
Yeah,
So
we got a
yeah,
lot.
buddy.
We have a lot here. We have a lot here in Nevada as well. We have a lot of illegals here in Nevada also.
Yeah.
You know.
So everybody pays tax.
Right.
And
everybody pays sales tax,
the only reason why I'm okay with us being past the whole property tax voting thing, or only people who are have served in some capacity, or I'm like, yeah, we all pay taxes. It's all of our money. If we're paying taxes and it's our money, then we can vote. At this point, we all have skin in the game because we have so many damn taxes. We didn't have that many taxes when the nation was founded.
Well, no, you didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I swore. I shouldn't have swore. I've been in a mood today.
That's okay. I swore.
I apologize.
I swore earlier too, but then again, I swear all the time, so that's not unique for me.
I've been grumpy today. I didn't sleep enough the last 2 nights. Anyway, too much work. So I have, like I said, I have ideas. I mean, we'll get into it on another call, but one night I'll call in and tell you how I think we should actually elect our presidents and our senators and our congressmen.
Oh, definitely.
Or mostly the president.
Definitely look forward to that call. That'll be a good one.
We need to eliminate all that popularity contest nonsense and change the way the parties are functioning in general, so they have a much less power. Well, I have ideas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. In fact, remember the founding fathers didn't want political parties. They did everything to try to avoid it. And within one, I think within one election cycle, you had political parties. You know.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's a whole thing. I will write out my points so that when I call in, I can give it to you in a concise way because it's a pretty large thing. I mean, in fact, I probably might write a few chapters on it and publish it because I have a lot of information that I've been collecting on it. But I will make a small outline and call you on it some night.
No, please do. Please
when
do.
I'm not working 24 hours a day.
Damn.
Okay.
You're like
you think
like
we
me.
ran off the trolls? Have I bored everybody away?
I don't think you bored anybody, actually. But you know, no, we probably didn't. Well, I see Mr. Douchebag's on the site, so he always brings a few trolls with him for some reason. They follow him wherever they go.
Oh, okay.
Wherever he goes.
They follow him just to irritate him.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't get to kick the one out because I was busy looking up some information. I'm always researching, you know me. But but thanks for indulging my wondering thoughts for the evening.
Oh, not at all. No, thanks for the phone call. Really good call.
Hope you get another good call in tonight, and I'm going to be going to bed soon. So good night to everyone. I have to get up early. It was really nice chatting.
All right. Well, good night, Miss Effie Real.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was a great Effie Real. Always a good phone call. And yeah, she has a lot of interesting ideas. You know, it would be nice. Yeah, I mean, if they could catch on. It's just the damn media. You know, they're just so self-righteous and everything. It's just, you know, I mean, here's a story that they got. I mean, okay. Take out the obstruction argument. I mean, the obstruction was just obstructing, you know, a crime that never occurred. You know, I mean, why would Donald Trump want to obstruct an investigation of something he knows never happened? You know, and that is actually a legal factor you look into, and the legal element that's part of an obstruction case is corrupt intent. So what you look at for corrupt intent, one of the factors you look at for corrupt intent is, was there an underlying crime that he was trying to, you know, obstruct an investigation into? And if there was no crime, it's harder to prove a corrupt intent. It's an element of the crime the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And so there was no underlying crime for him to obstruct. In other words, like just go back to firing Comey and what he said on, what was that reporter's name for NBC News? God, I can't remember his name. But anyway, when he kind of was bragging, oh, I fired him, you know, it wasn't Rosenstein, it was me. You know, I mean, that was just braggadocious stuff. I mean, that's just Trump being Trump. You know, Trump can't admit that somebody told him to do something, you know, that he took somebody else's advice. You know, the example of that in real time was when, you know, he had that idea about, like, hey, if a veteran can't get in to see the doctor, you know, we should be able to give him a voucher to go to a private doctor and pay for that. And he goes, hey, what do you think about that idea? I just came up with it. And then the guy goes, well, actually, no, we've been trying to get that through for, 10 years, and Trump was all upset. Mr. Douchebag. Hey, Mr. Douchebag, how you doing?
What's up, Carl? How you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Hold on. What was that?
I don't know.
Carl?
Are you still there?
Hold on. It was my laptop. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
Hold
okay.
on, I'm setting it up right now. How is everything?
Everything's going good.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm sorry I didn't call in early. I just, I kind of want to give other people a chance to call in. You know what I mean? I'm sure everybody gets a little bit bored of hearing my voice all the time. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like hearing your voice. No, you always bring up some really good points. So, but no, I appreciate that. I know Effie got to call in, and I always like talking to Effie too. You wrote in there like great call, good call. She always has really good comments to add to the discussion. I always like when she calls.
Oh in. Yeah. Because I love calling in, but I like to give other people a chance too. But sometimes, it's like when you open the phone lines, right? And because I try not to call when you're doing the news, right? But then sometimes people, nobody's calling in, so I'm like, okay, I might as well call in. You know what I mean? Because I try to give everybody that chance. You know what I mean? But,
no, I hear you.
But well, did you see that epic rally in Michigan today? My God!
No, I didn't get. I was working. I didn't get a chance to see it. But was it like jam packed like the others are?
Oh yeah, always. I mean, it's they're always trying to make it out. Like the media is always trying to make it out like Trump is not filling I mean, Trump fills stadiums. Democrats fill gymnasiums.
Yeah, no. He'll go to a sports arena for like a basketball, hockey sports arena or actual baseball or football stadium. But yeah, he'll fill up like an 18,000, 19,000 seat basketball hockey stadium. And let's be honest. I mean, it's not 2020. I mean, this is 2019, and he's getting these huge crowds. I mean, very few people can say they can go out in a year that it's not even the midterm election year either. I mean, it's 2019 is right between the two, and he's still going out filling up these huge venues. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's getting there's this Mueller report. That he probably would have got the same crowd anyway. But I mean, the Mueller report didn't hurt. So I mean, people are like, we're behind you, and the nice thing for all of us, it's like. For everybody who's been telling us, your guy's going down and he's finished and you don't know what you're talking about and these people are the experts on TV and you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I guess we did.
Yeah.
And I guess we did know what we were talking about. I guess we were looking at all sides of the story, and the guys on TV weren't. And the guys on TV, I don't care how many degrees they have behind their name, or they were a U.S. attorney or a former assistant U.S. attorney or a former Watergate prosecutor, they still had a huge bias. And they knew, here's the deal, they get paid to go on these shows. Well, if they come on the show and they speak reasonable, well, guess what? They're not coming back on the show. So they know when they get on the show, even if they have a reasonable position, they know if they want to come on the show again and get paid. And, some of these people, like the one former Watergate, she wasn't the prosecutor, but she worked on the prosecution team. This woman, she got gray hair and kind of heavy set. She was like on MSNBC. She was on MSNBC on Lawrence O'Donnell's show. The Friday night, the initial letter went out from Barr saying there are no further indictments. And she's sitting there, and she got this stupid look on her face. And, she's trying to look for some way to cover her ass to make herself look good because, I have all this experience. I was a former Watergate prosecutor, and Trump is going to go down, and they're going to get him. And now she's sitting there like an idiot. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the problem. You get reasonable people who say unreasonable things so they get called back so they get paid. Really.
Well, what's gonna happen now is they're gonna subpoena everybody who worked with Mueller. They're gonna try to subpoena Mueller probably more than once. They're gonna support They're gonna subpoena the people who Mueller interviewed probably. I mean, it's like I don't know. These Democrats, they're out of gas. They have nothing. If I were them, what's funny today. Remember the other day when we were talking, right? And I told you I was talking to some people, right?
Yeah.
Today I had a couple of people come up to me and ask me, some of the things you're telling me are kind of true. Why aren't they starting to work on some of the things that we voted them to do? And I'm telling them this is what they're going to do. And you watch, you give them more time, they're going to start, wasting more taxpayer money. They're not going to pass any legislation. And I'm telling them, and look at today, Trump. Trump said that the Republicans are going to be the party of health care, right? Well, to me, that's a good thing because Trump is showing that he's trying to work with both sides. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have a government-run healthcare for all, but there are things the government can do to make healthcare a little bit more affordable, and bring down the cost of prescription drugs. You know what I mean? But
yeah, no, I mean, there are things there are things that Trump will work with the Democrats on. Again, we all know he was a former liberal Democrat his whole life. So I mean, he shares some of these opinions, and again, I never understood why when he came in, instead of Schumer going along with all the bullshit, instead of him doing all that crap and trying to get him, he just said, I know I can work with this guy. I've known this guy for like 30 years. I mean, we're right. Yeah. They probably hung out a lot together. And instead of having to play the role and play, we're gonna, this was a terrible thing. He got elected. I'm not gonna talk to him. He could have been over in that freaking White House like every other day, working out deals. Just him and Trump alone. They didn't need to bring anybody else with him and said, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And I guarantee you, they could have got an infrastructure deal done. They could have got a lot of things done. But instead, he's been playing the game and playing the role and acting the fool. And, Trump's been getting it done without any help from these guys. But, God, can you imagine how much they could have got done if Schumer just would have gone over there and said, okay, look, this is what I like to get done. This is what I need. Let's get it done. And I guarantee you they could have got deal after deal after deal done. There have been so many things done right now. It would have been unreal.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about Schumer, and I'm willing to bet this. I mean, even though he's out there, he's an idiot, he's out there, but I'm willing to bet you anything secretly he doesn't agree with Trump publicly, but I bet he agrees with Trump, a lot of what Trump says, but obviously he's not going to admit that, but I'm willing to bet he does. You know what I'm saying? Because Schumer is not, I mean, he's an idiot, but he's not an idiot like Nancy Pelosi idiot, I mean, Schumer said some of his, he's said some crazy things, but Schumer is probably more of a little bit more negotiable than a Pelosi,
Yeah.
But like these progressive Democrats, you can't reason with them. They're so far out in our space with their ideology of socialism. You can't reason with those kind of people. It's the same thing on the far right. You have these like, hardliners that don't want any immigration. Well, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that either, because we are a nation of immigrants, but come the right way. Don't come illegally, come the right way. You have to wait your turn like everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Totally agree. The reason for waiting your turn isn't just like you should have to suffer because I suffered too. The reason for waiting your turn is that we say, okay, look, here's how many people we think we can take in per year that we can handle that's good for us, that's good for our economy. Any more than this number is going to be bad for our economy, it's going to be bad for us. We're not going to be able to assimilate them fast enough. We're not going to be able to handle any additional crime. We can't handle any additional safety net payments to these people. This is a number. And like I've always said, Tucker asked the same question. It was great. He had this, immigration dude on, and he said, look, okay, right now we do 1 million. Just you tell me the number, because the guy goes, well, we need more immigrants. He goes, okay, tell you what, just give me a number. I don't care if it's 2 million. I don't care if it's 3 million a year. You tell me, you give me a number that you say this is good for our economy, and we'll say okay, and then we'll look at it and we'll have debates. We can argue it in the front of the Senate, in the House, hold hearings, I'll have expert witnesses. From business, from industry, Chamber of Commerce, from law enforcement. From community leaders, activists, people down in the streets, whoever, economists, and say, okay, this, and the number there'll be different numbers, some will be higher, some will be lower, and then they'll compromise and say, okay, the number is 2.2 million per year. Okay, you say, okay, we're gonna, and then this many, like 100,000 in this category, 400,000 in this category, and then you say, okay, and that's it. That's it. It's 2.2. I don't care if it's 4.2. Whatever the hell the number is, that's it. Nobody else comes in. No asylum claims. No nothing. Just boom. Change the laws and say, that's all we're letting in. We can't take if people need asylum. They can go somewhere else. Okay, we can't take any more people, asylum people in. Just change the law on that. It's not a constitutional right. It's a statute. The asylum law is a statute. Just amend the damn statute. And that's it.
And those asylum laws, believe it or not, discriminate against a lot of people who have job skills, because they've written it to where it's like people who have no education, are the ones that are a priority. And I'm like, you can't be like that. You got to make it fair for everybody, and it's like, everybody thinks that Trump, in the beginning when they were pushing this massive racist narrative,
Right.
guess what? Obama ended the wet foot, dry foot policy for the Cubans, coming in from Cuba.
Right.
He ended that. And he was deporting Haitians left to right when they were coming here.
Oh, yeah.
And they say this is the first pro-black president? Right.
No, well, see,
right. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, but it's
no. The thing with President Obama is, okay, you can read his book, and I've seen excerpts of his book. I haven't read the whole thing. But you get Dreams from My Father, which he didn't title the book Dreams of My Father. He titled it Dreams from My Father. And Obama knows, the English language. He knows the importance of words. And if you read his book, and this is portrayed many places. A lot of people have written movies, made movies about it, written books about it. He talks about he had this identity crisis, which makes sense. I mean, he's half black, he's half white. His father is from Kenya. His father's a missing in action dad. He's being raised by grandparents. He's in Hawaii, which is a weird place in of itself. I mean, think about it. He's got all these Hawaiian natives and nationalists around him, and so he's got this identity crisis. Well, he finally figures it out for himself. He goes to Kenya. He visits his dad's gravesite. Dinesh D'Souza does a really good job of showing this. He goes to his dad's gravesite, and Dinesh he kind of like shows president at at his father's gravesite, and he reads some excerpts from the book, saying what he's talking about his father, and so he figures out his identity. He's African. He says, okay, I'm African. I am my father's son. Okay, these are dreams from my father. I am going to advance his cause, his position. Okay, and so what that means at that point, he's not identifying as an African American. He's identifying as an African, and so there's no love lost between him and African Americans. He could care less about them. That's why he didn't care. He didn't care about the fact that you had more African Americans in poverty at the end of his administration than before it. You had more African Americans on food stamps at the end of his administration than before. You had you had a lower rate of home ownership among African Americans at the end of his administration than before. He didn't. Okay, he could have fixed that. Okay, he could have done things like Trump is doing, the opportunity zones. He could have done criminal justice reform. He could have done tax cuts. He could have brought business into the inner cities. He could have done everything that Trump is doing. He could have done, but he didn't care. He's an African. He was representing the interests of Africa. He was looking after his father's causes, anti-colonial causes. That's why he got rid of the bust of Winston Churchill, like the first day he got into the Oval Office. The whole 10 yards. That's why his position on Israel was always negative. He was probably the worst president regarding Israel we've ever had in my lifetime. Netanyahu was going crazy as far as the Iran nuclear deal, going crazy on that last little sanction, the last little vote that he didn't veto in the UN in December of 2016. Netanyahu couldn't believe it. He's like, what the hell? So I mean, that's who the guy was. And I don't, now, did he tell us who he was? Yeah. It's just that none of us were listening. It was in his book. Well, all you had to do was read his book, but I didn't read his book. Okay, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. But he told you, this is who I am. And look, remember the speech at Grant Park in 2008 when he won? What did he say? Okay, I didn't catch this till later, till I saw Dinesh's movie. And I'm so mad at myself. He says, change has come to America. Come from where? He didn't say change, we're gonna change, we're gonna have change in America. He says change has come to America. He was telling us, I am not from here. I am bringing change from over there to over here. And I missed it. I was all caught up in the moment. I missed it. I didn't read the damn book. There it was. But so he wasn't hiding. He wasn't hiding himself. He wasn't deceiving it.
No, he wasn't.
In fact, his big thing was he could speak to a crowd, and all of us would take away from it what we thought he was saying. Okay, he was like, it's like he could say 20 words, and there'd be literally 20 people say, oh, he was talking to me. He meant this. And then somebody over there said, no, he meant this. And this guy over here says he meant this. And it's like he had a way of doing that, but I'm sorry, he meant one thing, and the rest was like, oh, he must mean this. Well, no, he wasn't meaning any of it. But he wasn't hiding who he was. He wrote it. He wrote it down. We could have read it. I didn't. Okay, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. So there you go. So, but anyway, so when it comes to the whole thing with Haiti, well, he could give a shit. He could give a shit about Haiti. He didn't give a shit about the Haitians.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
Why would he care about them? Why would he care?
Well, he refused. It's like he was like when Haiti was having that crisis. What was it when Jean Pierre was in power? it was like he didn't want to send troops. He didn't want to send troops. And, as other countries were sending troops to, I don't remember all what was happening, but I know that we sent troops over there to kind of keep keep the peace or something. There were some things going on over there.
Yeah, well, I can't remember during his administration. I mean, obviously, you had the big earthquake. That was during his administration. That's when Hillary Clinton went down there as Secretary of State, and Bill Clinton went down there and just ripped the place off. And they were still protesting Bill Clinton right up until the 2016 election, because he went down there.
Not to mention Soros was down there too.
Yeah, I mean, they were supposed to build all these like housing and everything else, and the money just kind of vanished. And the Haitians are still pissed off at the Clintons for that. I mean, they put Bill Clinton in charge of holding on to the money and distributing it. Oh, Jesus. So I mean, So I mean, that was during that time. But again, President Obama didn't give a shit about the Haitians, and obviously, he didn't care about African Americans either. Because if he had, there were a lot of policies and things he could have done. I mean, Trump is doing these things, but he's not targeting just African Americans. He's targeting the American people, and that's what got Sanders into trouble in the Democratic primary. Because he didn't say, I'm going to do this for this group, this for this group. But he said, no, look, if we have socialism, we all go up together. It helps everybody of every race or of every ethnicity. Well, all these different interest groups and identity politics groups and Democratic Party didn't want to hear that shit. They didn't want to hear, oh, we're all in it together. They said, no, what are we going to get? What's my group going to get? What's my group going to get? What's my group going to get? And that's why Sanders ran into a big problem. In the Democratic primary. He's like, no. He goes like, we can't think like that. We can't think of groups. We have to think of we're all in this together. Well, the Democratic Party doesn't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear we're all in this together.
Carl, some people may not agree with this, and please keep in mind, I am no Bernie Sanders supporter, not at all. But I don't think the 1% wanted Bernie in power either, because I've seen things like when he made those videos, the 1% are going to start paying their fair share. He probably would have broken up the banks. He might have even gone after big tech, break up big tech. I mean, I don't know if he would. I don't know if he would have.
Could have. I mean, you got to remember something. Again, NBC News, corporate NBC News, they screwed Sanders over. I was watching this, in real time, and my mouth just dropped when they said 2 days before the California primary, which was neck and neck between Clinton and Sanders. And Sanders was behind the delegate count, but if he had taken a good chunk of California, like the majority of the votes, he could have gone to the convention really in strong shape, and it would have been a floor fight. It would have been a convention floor fight. But instead, NBC News 2 days, so there's no time for anybody to react. 2 days says, well, we counted up the delegates she has right now from the primaries and the caucuses, and we polled all the super delegates, and based on our count, Hillary Clinton is now the presumptive nominee, which suppressed the Sanders vote in California, so it went from a neck-and-neck race, and I think Clinton took it by 8, 10 points, maybe 12, I can't remember. And they did not want him getting that nomination, and they knew if he looked like he looked like he was building up momentum in California, and he probably would have taken the majority vote in California, and that would have sunk the Clinton campaign. And those super delegates, I mean, they're not honor bound by what they say they're going to do. They could have easily jumped ship over to Sanders. And NBC News and the mainstream media did not want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, see, I think what would have happened, and Sanders, I mean, let's face it, he did say some things similar to what Trump said, but I don't think Sanders would have been as aggressive as Trump is, right? But I think Sanders thought that if he became president, the 1% could not touch him. And that was a very serious miscalculation on his part, because look at the grief that the Democrats are giving Trump.
Right.
They probably would have given Sanders the same kind of grief.
Oh yeah, no. He would have got the same kind of grief. Because if he would have, both Sanders and Trump were appealing to a populist message. Sanders was socialist. That's why I was kind of looking forward to a Sanders-Trump general election, because then I think it would have been a clear choice of the American people. The American people would have said, this is what we want, and then, in my opinion, they would have gone for Trump, and then we could have all said, okay, we're not, some people want the socialism thing, but most people don't, so can we just kind of lay this one to rest now? Can we put it to bed? That's why I was looking forward to that campaign.
Yeah. Well, because with few people, especially now, keep in mind again, I am not a supporter of Bernie Sanders, but one thing I will say about Bernie Sanders is that the Bernie Sanders of 2016 is not the same Bernie Sanders of 2019. The reason why I say that is because, I mean, let's face it, these globalists have people that meet behind closed doors with these politicians all the time. We know this. Everybody knows this. Politics is a dirty game. Now, there was probably something that maybe they told Bernie and Bernie didn't want to go along with it. Because Bernie Sanders never, I mean, keep in mind, his policies were off the wall, but Bernie Sanders never struck me as somebody who would have opened our borders. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he might have probably propped up a bunch of people on welfare, but I don't think he would have opened our borders like Hillary would have.
Well, no. Actually, I agree with you on that. I'll tell you why. Because in order for his socialism to work, you couldn't have a huge You couldn't have a huge number of immigrants flowing through the country because he knew it. They couldn't. Socialism needs a finite amount of people initially to get it off the ground. Now, down the road, maybe, but yeah, I think he would have been very tough on immigration. He would have been like, well, no, wait a second. I got 320 million people right here, right now. We're changing the entire U.S. economy. I don't have time to let another several 100,000 in while I'm trying to do this. I can't do this and that at the same time. I think he would have come down hard on the border. I agree with you on that. His position now, obviously, because now he knows he has to go far left in his speech about immigration and stuff. He has to go far left, So I mean, that's just where he realizes the party's moved even beyond him, and now he doesn't want to lose again. So now he's going far left on race. He's going far left on immigration. He's going as far as he can possibly go.
Because I don't think, I mean, this is just my opinion, and keep in mind, I'm not, but I don't think Bernie Sanders would have, I mean, people could disagree, people could agree, I don't think Bernie Sanders would have completely destroyed our capitalist system. I think what he might have done was he was looking more like Switzerland and Sweden, like countries that have social programs, but still allow capitalism to flourish so they can have the money to pay for the programs that they want. In other words, that they allow certain corporations, or they allow corporations to keep certain net profits, just enough to reinvest back into the country, but maybe tax them at like 30-35%, to pay for some of his programs. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, like I said, I could be wrong on that, but I don't think we would have seen drastic change like we would have under Hillary. I mean, eventually Bernie Sanders might have, if he had constantly, it probably would have been worse, like say when Bernie left office. Like let's say Bernie came in, right, and he, let's say he changed our capitalist system a little bit, but I'm still like, let's say working class families weren't taxed so much. Maybe they were taxed just enough to, like maybe 10%, 10% more than they usually are. Okay, I understand. I mean, because government has to be. It doesn't need to be bloated, but it does have to be sizable to get things done. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
The key word is sizable, not bloated. It has to be at least enough to where it can provide the services that it needs to provide for people, because what these progressives don't understand is the government has no money of its own. It relies on the taxes that it collects from the working class and corporations to pay for the things they want to get done. And these progressives don't understand this. They're completely clueless when it comes to the tax system. A lot of them are,
Oh,
but
yeah.
anyway, no, go ahead.
No, I was saying I agree with you. No, they don't. No, in other words, Obama had the same problem. He was thinking like when he said, hey, if you have a business, you didn't build that, and because he was saying like, look, these highways and stuff, that was from the government, but didn't realize the government got the money from private people when they pay taxes. So you have to create capital, then you can have taxes, and then you can build stuff. Then you can build highways and stuff. But that initially you have to have private capital being created by business leaders and stuff like that. Then you can tax the money, and then you can build highways. So when they say, well, you didn't build that, it's like, we damn right we did. you know, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then if you have a business and you use shipping and stuff like that, you pay, you know, the gasoline tax, which pays for the highways and the roads. You pay a higher user fee, kind of
Yeah.
like a consumption tax, like we were talking
Yeah.
with Effie Real. So, you know, the idea that he can say,
Mm-hmm.
well, you know, the government built it. Well, where did the government get the money from? Oh, that's right, from you guys. Well, yeah, then shut the hell up, you know. So, you know, there you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Great. Mm-hmm. Shout out to brother Lilo 69. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Gracias, amigo. Tu era bueno. Tu era bueno. Just telling him he's really good. Don't worry, Carl. I promise. No, I wasn't saying anything bad. I'm just telling him he's really good. You know.
Oh no,
He's
hey
real
man,
good.
you're good to go, man. You're good. You're good.
But you know what? But see, like me, for example, right? I wouldn't necessarily have like, okay, like let's say if we had to go with the lesser of two evils, Bernie would have been the lesser of two evils than Hillary, right? But let's say Bernie had done all the things that he wanted to do, right? Well, the problem would be after Bernie had left, because what if you got a radical? Because Bernie wasn't. I mean, Bernie 2016 was not a far. I mean, he didn't strike me as a far left candidate. He was more like maybe center left. I don't know how center left, but you know, he struck me more center left than far left. You know, but again, people don't understand that Bernie of 2016 is not the same Bernie as 2019. But see, the progressives that do understand that are now supporting Trump, like H.A. Goodman, those who watch H.A. Goodman's channel. There was another guy, a rapper, who was a backer of Bernie, but now I think he's backing Trump. But I don't think even right now, people don't understand Bernie's not even going to make it out of the primaries. I'm willing to bet you money that Bernie does not make it out of the primaries. Joe Biden ain't going to make it. Beto O'Rourke ain't going to make it. If anybody, maybe Joe Biden, of all the old white men, is the left.
Yeah, but you know, Joe Biden.
like,
I was watching Sticks and Hammer this morning, and I agree with him on this thing. He was saying, why is Joe Biden going left? He's not going to out-left Kamala Harris. He's not going to out-left Bernie Sanders. Why is he going left and talking about, oh, white culture creates rapists and white culture bad? I mean, look, if he's trying to, you know, he needs to enter, you know, he needs to stay in the center left, because that's where he's all by himself, and that's where the big money's going to go. That's where the donors are going to go, and you know, if he occupies that, he occupies it all by himself. Nobody else is hanging out there except maybe Tabby, whatever her name, Tulsi. I always screw her name up.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, thank you. You know, except Tulsi Gabbard, but she has no chance because she has no name recognition. The mainstream media is not going to give her any name recognition. Mainstream media really can't shut down Joe Biden, because where Joe Biden goes, they're going to follow, because the ratings are going to go. So they're going to definitely follow him.
But each one of those candidates, like, see, like right now, Joe Biden, like, let's say of all those candidates, right? They would like Beto O'Rourke, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. They will all need at least some kind of minority running mate, like Abrams did, like Biden did with Abrams, right? You know, they would at least need somebody of color.
Hey, can I ask you a question about that? Because I heard that story, but I really didn't deep dive into it. Did the Biden camp put that out about Stacey Abrams, or did the Stacey Abrams camp put that out, or did somebody just make that up?
That I don't know. I've seen it in the news, but hold on. Let me see if I can bring up the article. Let me see if I can. Hold on a second. Because I know that it's something that's been floating around for a while.
Yeah, see, I just keep thinking it's the Stacey Abrams camp putting it out there saying, oh yeah, Joe Biden wants to put Stacey Abrams on the ticket, and then I'm thinking like Joe Biden's like, yeah, where did that come from? And he doesn't want to go out and deny it because he doesn't want to piss anybody off. But I keep thinking that was like one of those leaks from the Abrams camp, because she's looking for a job. It's because, you know, her future in Georgia politics is slim and none. You know, I'm not sure she has much of a future. I mean, I'm not sure what she'd run for. You know, the Senate seats there are pretty safe right now in Georgia. So she's not going to run for Congress after running for governor. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't even think she could make it to Congress. BuzzFeed. Well, I'm just reading the headlines.
Yeah, go ahead.
BuzzFeed says why the Joe Biden Stacey Abrams rumor won't go away, and then Washington Post says Stacey Abrams says she's not joining Joe Biden's ticket for now. This suggests she knows her political value, and then it cuts off right there. But
well,
I mean,
I don't know what political. I mean, look, she can get votes in the South. I mean, you need the black vote, the black female vote in the South. Hillary Clinton got that in 2016 against Sanders, and Sanders was playing defense for the rest of the election. So she could help with that, but I don't know. I'm not sure how much Kamala Harris can help with that now. She's getting a lot of negative press. But I think if Kamala Harris just keeps saying the right things meaning the wrong things, but the right things for the Black Congressional Caucus and for the leaders down in the South who get those people in charge of getting people to the polls. The people like the Black Congressional Caucus, those organizations. At the end of the day, you can say, "Oh, we love Stacey," but if she doesn't have any organization down there, it's going to be the Kamala Harris team, and I mean she's already got people in place down in the South. She does, and she's already making deals with people down there. So I mean, if Kamala Harris is able to grab the South or grab a good part of it, I don't see where Stacey Abrams fits in anywhere. I mean, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know, but I don't see where she fits in. Plus, she's a real big woman, kind of hard to fit in anywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But when you compare her to Andrew Gillum, I don't think Gillum was as radical as Stacey Abrams was. I mean, Gillum is out there. Don't get me wrong. Gillum would have ruined Florida. I mean, he would have been destroying the economy of Florida had he got in. But I don't think he was quite as radical as Stacey Abrams, because Stacey Abrams wanted to ban guns left to right. Andrew Gillum didn't really talk much about guns. I mean, he talked about it, but I don't think he went hardcore on it as Stacey Abrams did.
Well, Florida's one of those states where like everybody owns a gun, whether you're liberal or conservative. So, yeah, if you're pushing gun control in Florida, you're running for a statewide office. That's probably not a good place to occupy, because a lot of people, it's very easy to get a CCW in Florida. It's not a shall issue state, but it's pretty damn close. It's pretty damn close.
Yeah. I mean, because these most of these people that like for example in New Zealand right now, right? Like you try to look up, there was I don't know if there was a panic buy. I know I was talking about this the other day, but in New Zealand, they're already talking about banning guns, and I think even before, I think most of New Zealanders, I don't know. I mean, Americans are armed to the hilt. Let's face it, Americans are armed to the hilt. 100 million gun owners? I guarantee you it's probably double that.
Oh, I agree. I agree. There's something like I don't know, 400 million guns in the country, they say, or something crazy. Yeah. No, there's a lot of gun owners in the country, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why these globalists can't just, like I've seen, it's like, I mean, New Zealand, I don't know how well the citizens are armed over there. I mean, obviously they are armed because I think they allow some, you can purchase certain kinds of firearms, but, they're not going to hold more than maybe like 4 or 5 rounds. You're not going to probably have a, I mean, I don't know much about guns. I can't really speak on that, but.
Oh, I know, I know a lot about guns. What do you want to know?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, but I mean, like in New Zealand, wasn't there a panic buy, I thought, after that guy had shot up a mosque that he shot up and he killed 49 people?
He killed like 49 people. I think, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really get into that story that much because, I just knew it was all being stupid. But I think he had a semi-automatic rifle, if not a semi-automatic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had a semi-automatic rifle, like an AR-15 type rifle, something along those lines. And he had like 30-round mags, and he was able to reload pretty fast. And you can reload one of those pretty quick. I mean, they're designed to be reloaded fast because they're even though they're not military grade assault weapons, they're modeled on the the M16. So I mean, as far as like the clip release and how the clip comes in and how you chamber around and all that, how you clear a jam, I mean, it's pretty much the same action.
Yeah. Well, it's like you have these, like militia groups. It's interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos about how those militia groups train, but I saw this one where they actually train in like open war, like they practice volley fire. They practice like, back in the, like, basically tactics from the 1800s. I don't know if you've seen that or not. Like where they hide up in trees and, they have.
I saw when they were like, they showed the Michigan militia. They were like showing them, running around the woods and stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But it's like, what's interesting, what's interesting, and a lot of people don't ever talk about this. I mean, it's been talked about, but let's say Hillary won, right? Who would be the ones to round up all the guns? Who would be the ones that, you know, that would go door to door, you know.
Probably initially local law enforcement or like BATF or
Yeah.
the National Guard or whoever.
Mhm.
And the same people that
Yeah.
rounded them up in New Orleans after the hurricane. You know, and they went around, you
Yeah.
know, they went door to door and said, "Do you have any firearms?" And then they had a list of people who had registered firearms, and they said, "You have to give up your guns."
Mhm.
And they said, and anybody who said no, they got arrested. And there was that one guy downtown who had a business, and he refused to give up his guns, and he barricaded himself in. He goes, "Look, I don't want to shoot anybody, but don't come in here." And that was kind of, you know, it was kind of a little hairy. But I mean,
I think I remember that.
Yeah, but
it raised a lot of eyebrows, and I think they stopped doing it after that, right?
No. I mean, they confiscated everybody's firearms. I mean, they went door to door. They went through the neighborhoods of the National Guard with, you know, their own M16s, AR-15s, whatever, and they went door to door. You had to give your gun up, and if you said, I don't know where it is, and they went through your house, and if you didn't answer the door, they kicked the door in. I mean, no, this is brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, so everybody says, they can't take your guns. Well, they declared an emergency or whatever, and they came in and took people's guns, you know, and because they were afraid people were, you know, but so people were defenseless. Like I'd be like, hey, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll give you my guns, but just are you going to post a guy outside my door? No, we're not going to do that. Well, then F you. What am I supposed to do when somebody comes around here looking to loot my, you know, loot, burglarize, rob me, whatever? You know, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Go after him with a baseball bat? No, I mean that was pretty scary. It wasn't really that heavily reported, but it did happen. It did happen in a U.S. city. It definitely happened.
What did the NRA have to say about that? Did they even step up, or did they even try to fight it in court?
I remember hearing, actually, by the time it was done, it was too late to fight anything in court. But I remember hearing very few stories about that. I mean, you almost had to get them on YouTube. You know how they did it. Like I think Red Elephants covered it. I think he was one of the guys that covered it. A couple other people covered it, but I know for sure Red Elephants covered that story.
You know what's interesting too? It seems like, you know, I don't know if I caught part of a conversation you're having with the previous caller. That they were talking about a lawsuit against some of these tech companies, like PragerU, I think, filed one with.
Well, yeah, I
Google.
Yeah, no, I downloaded that lawsuit, and they lost in front of the U.S. District Court judge. The district court judge, the U.S. District Court judge asked if they wanted a motion for reconsideration. They said no. We know we're going to lose again, so they did a straight up appeal to the Ninth Circuit. I don't know what the status of that appeal is, but yeah, they got hammered by the U.S. District Court judge. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she was, I want to say, an Obama appointee, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because they
NRA.
Yeah, because they had to bring the lawsuit. They had to bring the lawsuit where they're based. So that was in the Northern District of California, and that courtroom is either, God, I can't remember now. It's either in Oakland or in San Francisco. It's in one of those two places. And so
I don't know why they didn't.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you're about to ask why.
No, I was going to say, I don't know why PragerU even insists on having a headquarters in California. I don't know why they don't go to a red state. You know, it boggles my mind that they haven't moved to another state.
Well, I guess well, that's probably where the guy lives, and he doesn't feel like moving.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the laws, the state laws, they never got to they brought several state causes of action that they bootstrapped onto their federal causes of action, their federal complaint, and what the federal judge says, well, I only get to the state causes of action if any of the federal causes of action survives, and she knocked out all the federal causes of action. But the state of California has some really good antitrust, anti-monopoly laws, you know, because they're very, you know, liberal along those lines. But the U.S. District Court judge never even got to those causes of action because she dismissed all the federal causes of action.
Yeah. It's, you know, because it seems like now that there's this, I was seeing something earlier today on another YouTuber's channel, that it seems like a coalition of conservatives are getting together and filing some kind of censorship lawsuit against some platforms, I think. I don't know. They didn't mention who they were doing it, but it seems like some people are getting on board with this. You know, like just, you know, like the kind of combining to have their voice, you know, heard in a court. You know, so I don't know much about it. I have to research it. But you know, because, you know, if you're starting to deplatform people who have big followings, people are going to notice. You know. it's almost like, I mean, obviously they don't care. They're doing it, you know. But you know, you have, I don't, you know, like, you know, it's funny because you always hear these stories about Facebook, Twitter, YouTube dying. That is not true. You know,
No.
because for, you know, that's not going to happen. You know, I think YouTube's gotten better among the three of them, but you know, YouTube still does their thing. But I think YouTube's a little bit is like the lesser of the two. The lesser of the two.
Oh no,
evils,
no, it's totally the lesser of the two evils. I mean, and when it comes to, you know, YouTube versus Facebook, yeah, definitely. But I mean, you know, it's still like Mark Dice says, like he'll search for one of his videos, he'll type in the, you know, the exact title, and he'll be on page 4 of the search. You know what I mean? So I mean that's kind of chicken shit. I mean, you know, so I mean they're not putting the people who get the most views, the most likes, you know, up near the top. They're putting, you know, they're putting, you know, CBS. You know, I still get stuff on my feed for CBS, CNN, and I'm like, man, I never click on that stuff. I mean, why do I still, why do I still keep getting that on my feed? CBS, CNN. I'm like, I never click on that shit, and I click on all this other shit, and and all I get is the CNN stuff and the CBS News stuff.
Oh, it never fails. You go on your phone, you punch in the Google app, right? And all you get CBS. I mean, occasionally I'll get Fox, but I won't get anything like One American News, or Newsmax.
No.
I mean, I get Fox, but
right. Well, and Fox generally isn't the first one you get either. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 or 3 or 4. You know, it's down the line. Yeah.
I think Fox is, you know, not to jump from subject to subject. I'm sorry, but I think Fox is a little bit smarter than we thought. You know, it seems like they're not going to go far left just yet, you know. But I don't know what's going to happen with Judge Jeannie Pirro. I wish they'd give her back her show.
I thought they were. I thought they were giving her back her show.
Oh, they are? Oh, I didn't hear. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no, because it's interesting because when. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, unless I misread something. I mean, I saw something in the news. I want to say it was yesterday that she, you know, because she was like a 2-week suspension or something, and she was coming off her suspension. You know, that's what I heard. I mean, because what I heard, they did not cancel her show; they just suspended her for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, because she's got one of the highest rated shows. You know, because Fox is number one. Fox is number one. And you know what's interesting? I'm willing to bet Trump knows Fox is part of the mainstream media, but he kind of plays, you know, tells him, like, you know, don't do, you know what I'm saying? Right. He kind of like plays with Fox a little bit. And I'm thinking Hannity, even though Hannity, I mean, he's a no Trump supporter, so is Jeannie Pirro. But I'm willing to bet you those Fox executives would love to get Sean Hannity and Jeannie Pirro to say bad things about Trump. You know, because a vast majority of Trump's base watch those two on Fox News.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not going to do that. I mean, Hannity, I mean, his ratings are so high. I mean, Rachel was actually beating him for a little bit there because, you know, she was just all over the place. But
Rachel Madcow.
Yeah, but now her ratings went down, of course, and his ratings went back up. So I mean, you know, he's now beating her in the ratings, you know. So you know, he's doing good. He's doing just fine. So I mean, he's kind of a big person. I mean, like you know, getting rid of Jeanine Pirro is one thing. Getting rid of Sean Hannity, although they did get rid of Bill O'Reilly, but that had to do with sexual harassment stuff more than anything.
Yeah, well, he's on Newsmax, I think now.
Well, he has his own. He has his own. In fact, I subscribe to it. I get his emails, but he has a he has a paywall. You know, so in other words, if you want to read his entire story or listen to him, you got to you got to sign up and pay for it. I signed up for the first year, but I didn't renew it. You know, so I still get the emails and stuff. But you know, I don't know. I think it's kind of chintzy to make you have to pay for. You know, pay for it. You got to like pay for a yearly subscription or something. I think it's like $50 or something like that, $59 or something.
Yeah, no, I think I'll stick to my free news. I mean, it's you know, it's like Rush Limbaugh. The left, you know, they've hated Rush Limbaugh for years. You know, but again, you know, even in the 90s when he was talking about all this stuff, you know, they still couldn't shut him up because they knew if they they tried to shut him up. You know, but he's got such a huge following, if not an even bigger following now than what he did 20 years ago. You know.
Oh yeah,
because
without a doubt.
You know, and I don't think, you know, and I like Rush. You know, I don't listen to him much, but the times that I have listened to him, You know, he's not out of touch with people like us. You know what I'm saying? Granted, the guy's a millionaire, but you know, he's not out of touch so much with people like us. You know what I'm saying? Like Jeannie Pirro, Sean Hannity. You know, they're not completely out of touch with, you know, people like us, the working class. You know what I'm saying? They're not like, you know, they you know, they don't, I mean, you know, they by all means, they worked for their money. They worked hard to where they get. They should be able to have their money, you know?
Right.
I mean, you know, but I just don't think that they're like, you know, they don't, you know, they understand, like, you know, our positions. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like when you have those CEOs in the corporations who will once in a while, you know, they'll get out there and or like, you know, a big boss in a store, you know, he or she will, you know, work with, you know, they'll do like the other stuff that everybody else is doing. You know, to me, that's like they're not out of touch with, you know, everyday people that do the jobs that they used to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you need more leadership. You need more leadership like that in the elite. You know, you need people. I mean, you can have an elite class. There's nothing wrong with that, but an elite class should be setting by example. You know, not do as I say and not as I do. You know, like Cortez. You know, she doesn't. You know, she's you know, they've been getting on her for not paying her taxes. You know, look at all the stuff she's done in Congress, and she hasn't even been there 6 months. You know, she's definitely one of those do as I say and not as I do. You know.
Oh yeah. Well,
I mean,
the funny thing about that is that the person who supposedly co-authored the bill with her, who filed it with the Senate, namely Senator Markey, even he didn't vote yes on the bill, which is hilarious, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess now we're going to have to learn how to ride giant seahorses now. What was that?
Senator Mike Lee down on the floor of the Senate. Well, he was just trying to show how ridiculous it was, how ridiculous the proposals within the Green New Deal were. I thought it was hilarious the way he delivered it. I thought it was funny as hell.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know how they got permission from, who was that, Aquaman that they had? I don't know how they would get permission from.
Well, you know what though? He's on the floor of the Senate. I mean, good luck in suing him. You can't. I mean, he can put up whatever he wants. I mean, you know, he's got all kinds of, you know, like a House member, like for the 3 minutes, everybody can get at the beginning of the day. Everybody gets 3 minutes to say. They can say whatever they want, and they are not liable for it. They can say the most defamatory. You name it. They could like pick some kid out of the audience. They look up. They can look up in the gallery and then see some kid up there and just start making fun of him, make the kid cry, and the whole 10 yards. And they can't be touched. They're allowed. They got full immunity, full privilege for anything they say. So I would assume the same rules apply for the Senate. You can get up there. You can use copyrighted material. You can do whatever you want. And guess what? No, they can't touch you. You know.
Yeah.
You know, remember who writes the laws? You know, the Congress. You know, so of course they're going to write laws to protect themselves from any kind of lawsuit or anything.
Yeah, clearly the Green New Deal was, you know, supposed to be like the final nail in the coffin to destroy our economy. You know, and when they brought it to the Senate floor, see, Cortez knew that when they brought it to the Senate floor, the whole idea was to basically, you know, get it gone. But, you know, obviously they can reintroduce it. If you get a Democrat-controlled Senate and House, of course they can reintroduce the bill, you know. But I think even in that point, because there were a lot of Democrats who voted against the Green New Deal, you know, because they know, look, this is ludicrous. You know, we can't have this because this right here, you know, you start taking away people's means of transportation. You know, you make it to where only the elite can afford energy.
Right.
You know, it's like they don't want us, you know, they don't, you know, have you seen that only people with six-figure incomes could afford the kind of energy that the Green New Deal is proposing?
Oh, no.
You know,
it was insane. You're going to retrofit all the buildings. Any new buildings have to come up with this new code. I mean, the price of construction is going through the roof. And, you know, and there are a few people who are going to get rich off it, obviously, but, you know, but no, her proposals her proposals were so bad that the guy who supposedly co-authored the bill with her, helped her write it, the guy who filed it with the clerk of the Senate, he only voted present. He didn't even vote yes on it. I mean, that's pretty sad when you know, you're a co-author of a bill. generally you bitch and moan about the fact that a majority leader won't put your bill on the floor because you're in the opposition party, and then then McConnell says, okay, I'll put it on the floor, knowing what was going to happen, and he says, oh, you're trying to sabotage us. Hey, man, it's your bill. If you thought there was something wrong with it, before you file it next time, make sure you go through it and take all the stupid crap out. And if you're too lazy or you got your head up Ocasio-Cortez's ass or some other body part, and
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure that I not to sound bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cortez is doing what Kamala Harris did to get to power. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I don't know that. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But
I mean, I don't know that either. But I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, you can't say it's not a possibility. I mean, Willie Brown dimed Kamala Harris out. I'm sure there'll be somebody diming Ocasio-Cortez out here shortly. But I mean, Willie Brown, what a dick. Well, he was kind of pissed. He was like a woman scorned because after he helped her get all that power, she kind of blew him off. She's like, oh, hey, thanks. And then he's like calling. You can imagine he's calling like, "Hey, you want to go out?" Clicking, hanging, or not even taking her calls. And then she goes off and gets married, and I'm sure he was like really pissed off. So he totally ratted her. He totally ratted her out on the having affairs. And how he brought his donors over to her to help her get elected for DA, and then help her get elected for AG. I mean, so but I mean, I'm sure maybe in the future we'll hear something about Ocasio-Cortez or something.
Oh yeah, well, the thing about Cortez is that she's, they wanted a pretty face, they wanted the globalists, they wanted a woman of color, they wanted a pretty face, because let's say because any little thing, and they're going to, like if anybody says anything bad about her, obviously they're going to be labeled a racist and all this other crap, But, it's funny because this is the same woman who says white supremacy is a problem in America, yet she's dating a white guy. Kamala Harris married a white guy. Joy Behar, who says, well, older white men are yada, yada. Well, guess what? Says the woman married to an older white man and has been married to older white men. The hypocrisy with these people is you can't make this crap up, Carl. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, these people are living in a world that they are completely in another world than we are. I mean, it's like how they say the NPC, the non-playable characters, right, in a video game.
Right, right.
You have the normal everyday conservatives and sane liberals, and liberals who understand what's going on. They may still, they have their views, but they understand what's going on. They see what's happening. The sane liberals. I said the same, not the insane, but the sane ones.
Right,
the ones that they're just trying to get out there. They're trying to work, pay their bills. Those are the characters in the video game. Not the non-playable characters, but they're trying to get through life. They're trying to get to their retirement. And then you have the non-playables, which are the socialists, those who vote for Cortez, those who voted for the likes of Kamala Harris. Well, we want socialism. We want corporations to pay their fair share. Rich people are immoral, and they're going around making life harder for everybody else to live. They go out, they block roads, they talk about social justice. They talk about, the evil white people are doing this to me, yada, yada, and it's like, come up with something new. Do something else other than what you've been indoctrinated to say and do. Find something constructive with your time and do it. It's like that interview with Floyd Mayweather. When he was talking about, he wasn't defending Trump, but he wasn't bashing Trump either. He was saying nobody likes the truth. People don't like the truth. And all the time you're doing this, worrying about somebody else, yada yada. Not in his exact words, but these were along the line of his talking points, right? You could write down ideas to make a business. And some of these progressives, their IQ, Carl.
Yeah, I'm still there. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And some of these progressives are smart as can be. I mean, they're some of the smartest people in the world, but their ideology is so misguided that they push these. They want these things to happen that are just going to destroy our country. You know, why don't they look? You know, it's like some of these liberals, right? When they go into business, you know, like, and they become business owners. Well, I guarantee you, 3 or 4 or 5 years, if their business is successful, I guarantee you, well, I'll almost guarantee you, they will become conservative because they see and they know what it takes to run a business, and they know they can't do it if they're under a socialist type of regime. You know, where the regime is taking all their money, taking all their income. You know, where they can't afford to stay in business. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, most of these people.
Well, no, most people have most of these people have no business experience, and you know, I mean, they don't understand. Again, they don't understand how wealth is created. I mean, they just don't get it. I mean, they think everything comes from the government. I mean, I don't know. Again, she majored in economics at Boston College. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's a scandal in that place somewhere. I mean, I don't know how that woman got through Boston College with an economics with a degree in economics. Because I mean, she knows nothing. I mean, with that one, even just that one line. Well, the unemployment numbers are down because people are working 2 jobs. Like I mean, she said that out loud, and I remember when I watched the replay of that, I'm like looking at it like she thinks like, okay, like they're counted twice, you know, not that they only counted once. She thinks I guess if you have 4 jobs, you're counted as 4 people, and you know, and I remember the reporter from PBS was, or NPR was looking at her like, you know, she didn't want to say, just look over and just slap her and say, God, you're stupid. I mean, but she could have easily have said that and gotten away with it. Like, God, that's like the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's like, where did you get that idea from? You know, I mean, but she didn't, and that's the whole thing. Like, you know, a young Republican gets up there on PBS or CNN or MSNBC and says something, you know, half cockeyed. I mean, he gets grilled. But, you know, I mean, she's saying some crazy shit, and Anderson Cooper will ask a question, then there's no follow-up, and he goes, well, yeah, but what about? He goes, oh, and then she'll say something stupid, and he goes, oh, okay. I mean, no follow-up, no pushback, no critique of her views. I mean, and she's got a free pass, you know. I mean, well, until she pisses the wrong people off. You know, she got a free pass right now.
Well, you know what's interesting, and what I found really weird was CNN was having some of these progressives on, and it seemed like CNN was grilling them a little bit too. I mean, we all know CNN is more behind the establishment corporate Democrats. So in a sense, that's, you know, not as bad as being behind these progressives, you know. But it seemed like CNN I think they did one on Cortez, but I think Dana Bash did one on Andrew Gillum, I believe, and Chris Cuomo did as well, and they were like hammering them. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? You know, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. Maybe there's a little hope for CNN after all. You know.
CNN. Well, okay. Chris Cuomo related to.
I mean, that was a while ago.
Yeah, and he's related to Governor Andrew Cuomo, who still needs to win elections.
Yeah.
You know, so he can't come out and say shit that's too crazy because they'll attribute it to his brother, and his brother won't win elections. You know, and his brother wants to be president someday. Obviously, he's not running right now. He's not running in 2020. At least there's no signs that he's going to. But, you know, so Chris Cuomo has to moderate himself a little bit. You know, not a lot, but a little. Yeah.
You know what I think they're going to do with Cortez's district, and you watch, because everybody thinks that these Democrats can't, you know, when I say, like, they can't, you know, like, all these Democrats act like they're afraid of her. But you know what they're going to wind up doing is redrawing those maps to take out, you know, they're basically like going to redraw those maps to where her district is going to, like, maybe they combine it with a bigger district.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. Where she's going to have to actually, she's either have to run for the new seat if they just totally wipe hers out, or they're going to make it such a big district that they're going to include, you know, normal people that aren't going to vote for her, you know, because, you know, she's stupid and they're stupid too. But, you know, I mean, she got to be careful. I mean, she's pissing off de Blasio, pissing off Andrew Cuomo, the governor, at the same time on that whole Amazon deal. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, the two most powerful people in the state of New York, and she goes after them. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, like the other her other 2 progressive cohorts, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Omar and
Omar
and
what's her name?
Tajib. I don't know, something stupid. Yeah.
You know, they are. I mean, obviously they're very radical, but they're not AOC stupid. You know what I'm saying? They don't seem to. I mean, you know, they make comments. Yeah, they've made some comments, but they don't seem to, you know, go off the wall like AOC does. You know, I mean, I think there was, I haven't seen it yet, but there was a thing where Omar was talking to some, she was addressing some people, and she said some things that were pretty disturbing, but I haven't seen that video, but I caught like glimpses of it, you know. But, you know, I mean, but, you know, when you have people like Eric Holder and these people say, oh, we go low, we kick them. And then, you know, Cory Booker? Was it Cory Booker that said get in the faces of some senators, you know, things like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, these people are just, you know, I mean, they're out of control. I mean, for a sitting senator to say, go get in the face of some of my colleagues, I mean, you know, really, what kind of debate is that going to be? It's no debate. Yeah. And Carl, I'm telling you, the right has shown. I mean, the right has shown an incredible amount of restraint. I mean, you know, like I said, you know, and it's like we talked about before. I know, you know, like, you know, these leftists, most of these leftists are like people, you know, your average broke college kid, people who don't really have jobs. You know, I mean, some of them do, but you know, they don't. You know, they're not happy with their jobs, obviously. You know, right.
But you know, you take away people their livelihood. And they act like they're not going to, you know, bite back or strike back. I mean, you know, the left is not, you know, and it's like I said before, you know, the left is not prepared to deal with what could come, and they don't understand this. These progressive far left liberals do not understand that there's this growing tension. Either they understand or they don't care. You know, one of the two.
Right.
But they don't comprehend that there's been this growing tension that started when Obama, you know, mostly elevated during Obama's second term, you know, where, you know, he's basically demonizing police and saying, well, if you don't agree with me, you're just evil and you're a bigot, you know, he's basically popping up those words, you know, racist and bigot and, you know, these people were rising up. And Donald Trump getting elected got those people to cool it. It got those people to, you know, okay, the ballot box does work, you know, but those same people that were rising up are still there. They're still out there. They're watching.
Oh yeah,
you know?
No, I ran into some people like that when I was out and about, you know, doing my fair and stuff. And this one woman came up and she was like hysterical. I mean, she was, why isn't Trump doing this? Why isn't Trump doing this? And there were a couple of, you know, conservative, not rhinos. No rhinos came over and talked to me, but, you know, there are a couple of conservatives there with me, and they were like, you know, lady, first of all, you need to calm down. Okay, that's the first thing, and two, realize he's not a dictator. Okay, and he has to deal with you know, a bunch of House Democrats. You know, he just can't, you know, wave his hand and go done. He has to work for Congress. I mean, that's our Constitution. Even like when he did the national emergency. That was based on a statute. It was based on Title 33, you know, the U.S. Code from a 1976 law. So, I mean, he has to work within the framework of the law. I mean, if he just goes and just does willy-nilly whatever he wants without the framework of the law, well, you know, then he will probably get impeached. Then you will see 2/3 of senators come out and vote in favor of impeachment. So, I mean, you know, he's got to work. Yeah. We're a democratic republic. He's got to work inside those lanes. But I mean, this lady was hysterical. I mean, she was like going off. She got loud fast. And we're both like, it was like three of us actually, me and these two other guys. And we're like, you know, I mean, what's the alternative? You know, do you want one of the Democrats in power? And she was all like, well, it's better than, you know. I said, no, it's not better than. You know, I hate that argument. Yeah. Well, I'll vote, you know, I won't vote for my guy because I disagree with him. And then hopefully the Democrats take over. And then 4 years we can come back and, you know, win. You know, I mean, that's a losing philosophy. I mean, that's the John McCain, Mitt Romney philosophy, you know, on how to lose an election.
You know, if the Democrats, you know, you don't really hear much about him anymore, but he was kind of an interesting Democrat. He seemed like he won over a bunch of conservatives in Pennsylvania, and that's Connor Lamb. The reason why I bring him up is because he ran as a blue dog Democrat. He didn't bash Trump. He ran on who was it that he ran? Was it Rick, what was his name? Rick,
whoever he was, I saw him. He was a terrible candidate. He looked like a dork. He was a kind of heavy-set, dorky-looking guy.
Yeah. But see, Connor Lamb, Connor Lamb, he ran as a blue dog Democrat. I mean, he doesn't really seem to, you know, he didn't really seem so far to the left. You know what I'm saying? He's like, we need to worry about issues in Congress. And it was funny because none of the Democrats really.
Yeah, well, here's the problem, though. I mean, when he gets, you win because he says he wasn't going to support Pelosi and all this other shit. That's great, but when after he gets into the House, first of all, he's not going to get any committee assignments, so he's not going to be able to do anything important. And none of it. And if he drafts a bill and then asks for a co-sponsor, and Pelosi says don't work with this guy, he can't even get a co-sponsor, and then or he can't if he files it on his own, it's going to get buried in committee. He'll never come out with his name on it. So I mean, he can say that before the campaign, but in order to be effective, he would have to go left when he got to the House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
unless he doesn't want to. So that's the problem with someone like, I agree, like he did have the appeal because I remember he was against Pelosi, he was against Obamacare, blah blah blah. He was taking off all the right conservative talking points, and the problem is that it was almost like he was taking off almost all of them, and by doing that, I mean, in my opinion, I wouldn't trust him when he got to Congress because again, in order to get any kind of assignments, committee assignments. He's gonna have to fall in the line. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, she wanted that energy subcommittee, that new renewable energy whatever subcommittee, climate change subcommittee, and and that's Ocasio-Cortez's big thing, right? It's climate change. Well, Pelosi didn't put her on the committee. She goes, oh yeah, because like a week earlier she confronted Pelosi and was talking some shit about her, and Pelosi goes, oh well, okay, I guess you're not sitting on the climate change committee that you want so much. Then, of course, Ocasio-Cortez threw a fit, and Pelosi says, I don't give a shit. You can sit there and cry all you want, but I'm not going to let you on that committee.
It seems like they're having trouble getting Omar off of the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Well, they're not having trouble. They're just not trying. I mean, they're not going to try to do that. They did that big vote, and they think, well, that's good enough. But, anytime somebody from the state of Israel comes on in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee, she's not going to be able to control herself. She just isn't.
Yeah. It's these globalists, and it's like these globalists, and I know I've talked about this on the show last time, but these globalists, it's funny because you go back, right? You go back to when the Bilderberg Group was first created. The Federal Reserve, 1913, right? Because that's when all this mess started, was in 1913 when the central bankers found that they were vulnerable to financial loss, right?
Right.
It seemed like over time it started off with the Federal Reserve, and then over time, because you have the elites going to Europe all the time. Not a lot of people were paying attention, but whatever their plan was, even back in the 1800s, because people don't understand this stuff goes far back, even before 1913. I mean, you had. Like the Rothschilds, when he sent his 5 sons to the different banks, like different countries in Europe, into like prosperous towns and things, set up shop, whether it was in real estate or banking, that was a brilliant strategy because he was able to, in a later time, they had the future in mind as well as today, the times that they were living in,
right.
whatever the plan was, obviously they had the future in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were able to basically tie all these things together. Maybe like say one Rothschild family would sell out to another Rothschild family, purposely to, get, like say they had a lot of business in real estate, the bank could buy, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't have a complete education in that, but, I know it works along the lines of stuff like that. If you want to merge businesses together, especially, to make, to become bigger and, But, these powers that back Soros and these powers that back Steyer and Bloomberg, people have no idea the amount of wealth these people have. These people have wealth probably within the trillions. And the fact that you don't even know how much wealth these people control, I mean, it's scary. It's scary that, that you can't see the kind of wealth that, because Soros's net worth was like $30 billion or $25 billion before he transferred $18 billion with the Open Society Foundation. You have to have a coalition of billionaires in order to pay off the amount of think tanks and the amount of politicians and the amount of, climate change scientists that you want to have, to push your New World Order agenda.
Right.
You have to kind of get them all on the same level. You have to get the people on the same level. You can't have any disagreements, and that takes money. It's obviously that takes a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, if but over time, these people wind up getting under the thumbs and the heels of these globalists, because these globalists have, you know, done so many favors for them, you know, and there's really, you know, and then they got to bring other people on, and they got to get them in the same position, you know, because you have to have people that can click with the generation that's coming up, you know. And you know, it's like Cortez, you know, she's the Bernie, you know, Cortez and her, you know, she's the Bernie Sanders of the millennial generation. You know, she's cool, she's, you know, she's cute, you know, she's, you know, but she's an airhead. You know, she has no thought of, you know, of any kind, you know, but you know, you stop and think about all this stuff, and you stop and think about how they planned all this, right? You know, well, in order to, let's say, like, you know, how, you know, like how I was talking about how they had that, you know, like how they had an opposing force, because, you know, like I said, Malcolm X laid it out right. Conservative kings and liberal kings have similar motives, but, you know, they differ in one way, and that's the liberal is more deceitful, more cunning, you know, yada, yada, you know. And it's true in a way. And I'm sure that, you know, there, you know, and like I said, you know, there is a force probably as powerful as the left force that is pushing back. And, you know, they use the similar talking points. Like for example, right, anytime a mass shooting happens, the left likes to take advantage of it to push gun control. Well, anytime an illegal kills an American citizen, the right uses that to push
immigration bill, right?
Immigration control. Yeah. You see how the tactics are the same, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if you've ever looked at it like that before, you know.
Well, no, I mean, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, but I mean, like, you know, and it's similar to where, you know, like where the left says, well, you know, we can have health care for all, well, we can finance wars, but we can't finance, we can't finance, we can't pay for this. Well, and then you have the right that'll say, well, this is how much illegal immigration costs, you know, and the numbers, they use the same similar numbers to how much health care would cost, you know, and how much illegal immigration will cost. You know, they use the same, I'm sure they're both right and left, they use the same think tanks, and they use, you know, similar mathematical patterns to figure this stuff out. You know what I'm saying? To push their narrative over the other narrative, you know.
Right.
And, you know, and it, you know, but, and it's a gamble. It's a gamble for both sides. Like, you know, right now it seems like, you know, I mean, like I said, you know, like I was saying before, Dr. Steve Truly was talking about how the right wing is poised to win big in the upcoming European election.
What did they, Steve Turley, or is that the guy that's...
yeah, Steve Turley, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about he covers the yellow vest stuff really good, that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
you know, he covers more stuff in Europe than he does here, but you know, that's a good thing, because you know what's going on in Europe, obviously. With the EU,
I mean, it's good.
It's
good that somebody's covering it with that kind of depth and everything. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, you know, but see, you know, right wing popular, you know, nationalism is rising up all over. You know, but see, you know, especially in this country, you know, I think people are starting to wake up a little bit, you know, and people are, I know I say this all the time on your show, but the question is how quickly people are waking up, you know, how fast are people waking up, you know, like, you know, like I said, I think Trump has a very, very good chance at winning 2020, but people hopefully don't get complacent and stay home and not go out and vote. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
No, I think everybody on both sides is coming out in 2020.
Yeah. And, you know, look at the rallies. You know, Trump fills stadiums. Democrats fill gymnasiums, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
You know, they don't fill stadiums.
And by the way, I'm stealing that line. That's now mine. It's mine. I called it.
No, that's cool.
That's a really good line. I like that.
Oh, no, that's all good. No, you know what, Carl, just real quick off subject, you know, like any of my one-liners, you know, I've seen people use them in videos, and I've seen people, you know, like I wouldn't be surprised if people were, you know, taking notes on all my one-liners, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I stay off Facebook and Twitter, and I don't use, because those sites, the real lunatics are on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh yeah, no, you can't go on there. I had a Facebook account because when Axe was like on Facebook, I joined in and then I got off like a month later. And then the way with Facebook, when you can't just automatically get off. You say, okay, I'm off, and they say, okay, you'll be off in 30 days. And what it is they've already got paid for those commercials for the next month. So they want to keep their numbers up because the higher the numbers, the more money they have to get paid for the commercial. So Facebook already paid a lot of commercial time. So literally, you wait around for 30 days, and then at the end of the 30 days, they say, "Oh, you sure you want to stay?" And it's like, "No," click, and then you're off. But still, they make you wait a month. No, the real maniacs on that side. That's why I got off it. I mean, it's just real maniacs.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carl, I have to commend like people like you, like Forbidden Information. You guys have the courage to get on the camera. You guys have the courage to get out there and talk to people and educate people. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that courage, and I'll be the first to admit it. I don't have that courage. I mean, I have the courage. I call into your show a lot. I love talking to you.
Like even a year and a half ago and stuff, I was on some pretty tough sites, and I always use my real name. I always use my real. I mean, the only reason why it's changed now to Carl's Opinion is because it was a good name to use. Carl's Opinion. Then when you change, I even figured out like when I changed it to Carl's Opinion, it changed it all the way through. So I'll send like an email to an attorney, and it comes through as Carl's Opinion, which is kind of funny with a picture of my dog. So I mean, but I haven't figured out how to not change it on everything, but just keep it changed on that. But I always use my real name. I mean, I'm like, hey, I'm putting my opinion out there. Here's my real name. Everybody knew where I was from. But and I stand behind what I say. I guess So but for those people, it's not a question. It's not a question of courage. Okay, nobody wants you to commit suicide. I mean, depending on where you live and who your neighbors are, and depending on where you work and what your HR department is saying, nobody wants you to lose a job because you want to be out there, using your real name. I mean, I'm self-employed, so but even if I was employed, I'd probably make a big beef at somebody, say, well, it's my First Amendment rights, go fuck yourself, and I'll sue for that, and guess what? I'm a lawyer. I know how to sue people. So I mean, but I'm a little different position than a lot of other people are, and I recognize that, and I respect the fact that people who are not in the same position I am have to do whatever they have to do to make sure they can still put food on the table, and their neighbors aren't banging down their door like with torches and stuff, like you're Frankenstein or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like Axel's show. I mean, Axel, his show is fun, but your show is more educational. I learn a lot. I mean, you are vastly more educated than I am. And I learn more watching you do the news than I do Axel.
Well, with Axel,
I think Axel.
Axe has an ability that I don't have. He has the ability to bring humor into news stories in a way that I was telling him that I told him that privately, but I also told him that publicly on when I did a call in, and I said, look, you have the ability, you can make the news funny, whereas I'll make some jokes here and there, but I can't do what he does. So I mean, the good thing about YouTube is that we all kind of complement each other. It's like if you want to watch like dry news, you watch Sticks and Hammer. You know what I'm saying? It's dry. There's no production quality. It's him standing in front of his phone. But I watch it every goddamn morning too. He does generally like 4 videos, and I'm up early enough at 6 a.m. my time, and I try to make it so that I can watch all of it. He does at least 3 of them, because at least one of the videos he does is like about the occult or something like that. So, but his three news stories. I mean, he's spot on. I mean, it's real dry. It's real sober. But I mean, he's generally spot on. I generally agree with 90% of what he says. So, but Axe has that uncanny ability to be able to bring a lot of humor into it, and that's good because he's bringing a lot of people in. Because especially when you got somebody changing their party affiliation or changing their mind, they need to kind of like find some humor first, because you got to laugh at yourself at first before you can actually make a leap. So we do have 2 different types of shows for sure. But I can't do what he does. I mean, there's no way I'm not funny. I'm sorry. I'm not a funny guy. So.
No, but that's not a bad thing. It's like me, for example, right? Like I've heard people tell me that my humor is very unique because not very many people come up with the kind of one-liners that I do, you know. And the Trump parody guy was asking me about that one time because he apparently I didn't know that. I mean, I called into his show a few times whenever he's done a call-in show, but apparently the chat rooms were like lit up with people wanting him to. I didn't see the chat room when I was talking to him, you know, but he had mentioned that that people in the chat were wanting him to ask me questions about my one-liners, like how do I come up with this, you know, and I'm more than happy to answer because see that's a gift, you know, like me, my one-liners, that's a gift I share with the world freely. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people have told me write a book, do this, do that, but you know, a book deal probably wouldn't really do much for me. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, yeah, you can make money, but then, you know, I mean, my heart's not in it to make money, you know, my heart's in it to share my humor with the world. I mean, you know, I don't go into the super inappropriate. Maybe once in a blue moon I might, like, you know, I don't use any cursing. Once in a like I don't use the F word. I don't use, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I use the F word, but because I use the F word like all during the day, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like I have to try to use it.
Yeah.
Like I try not to use it on this channel, but every once in a while, you know, I get pissed off about a story or something, and it just comes out because I use that word as part of my vocabulary. Unfortunately, it just always has been since I was probably like 18. Yeah, so I mean, like tonight, I got pissed off at that one guy on the site. I'm like, hey, you know, fuck, you know, I mean, you know, you do this fucking shit, you know, I mean, you know, what am I gonna tell you, you know, I was like, you know, hey, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, people don't understand. People got to understand when you call into a show, you're a guest. Like I'm a guest on your show, you know, and you got to be respectful of the host, just like you got to be respectful to those in the chat. You know, I mean, for example,
I mean, like I don't want to give, you know, like, look, I'm a small site, but you know, actually, the small site when they zapped him. Remember when they zapped him and he had to go to Still the Truth channel? You know, I mean, so I mean, they look for reasons to zap you, and I don't want to give them any reasons. And if they say, hey, look, man, you do a live call-in show, and you know every other caller is, you know, putting the, you know, N-word or something on you know, on your phone call, and either, you know, you're not screening it properly, because you have a responsibility when you do a live call-in show. You have the responsibility to screen the phone calls. And if you don't have that ability to screen them, then guess what? They're gonna say, "Well, sorry, we're not gonna let you do a live call-in show. We're not gonna let you do a live stream.
Yeah.
You know, you're out. You can't do a live stream. You can record stuff up, and that gives them a chance because when you record something up on YouTube, it goes through what they call processing. So they check it out. You know, I mean, as we're doing the show right now, the algorithms are going through. Like one time, I was doing, I used to do a lot of test videos. You know, where you could label when you go to set up a YouTube a show, a YouTube live show, you can either make it public or private or unlisted. So one time, you know, I was doing a test and I was trying to actually bring in a YouTube video. I was just trying to see, okay, how can I bring in a YouTube video, play it, and I get good sound, you know, good sound, not just shit sound, because I got a mixer board and I've learned a lot about sound. Trust me, I got a cloud device. I got a Pro ISO stereo. What's it called? Stereo mix isolator. You know, I got all kinds of stuff going on here. So, you know, I was testing to see. Okay, I want to bring in somebody's YouTube video, and so I made it private. Now, even though I made the YouTube video private, while it was on, and I brought in actually I was using Derek Grayson's YouTube video. Now I'm a Google subscriber. I pay like, you know, $14.95 a month for the family plan. So when I go to somebody's video, I don't, you know, that commercial sometimes you have to watch before the video starts.
Yeah.
I don't have to watch those because I already pay. I pay Google $14.95 a month, and so I don't have to watch the commercials. But when I was downloading it onto my vMix video production, it downloads it as it doesn't recognize my membership. So the commercial was playing. Well, there was a jingle on that fucking commercial. And so So I'm playing it, even though, and I figured, well, okay, but it's private, so they're not going to ding me. Well, right in the middle of the video, the live stream video that's just going private, the public can't see it. Only I can see it, and who I allow to see can see it. But even with that, they all of a sudden the video just cut off. They cut it off. Because they put copyright claim, and so I'm like, what the shit? So I didn't even realize at first what the hell was happening. And I'm like, oh wait, why is it not playing? And then I went back and looked at it, and then you have to kind of find the explanation. And there's the explanation. They said, you had there was an automobile commercial and had a jingle on it. And when I was uploading it, even though it was private, their algorithms, their voice, whatever thing they have when they're listening to this right now, caught it, and they zapped the whole video off. They just cut it off. It just stopped. Right in midstream. So I went back and looked at Sure said, okay, you have a copyright. It's not a strike. They said you don't get a strike for that, probably because it was private and some other reason. But they said if you dispute it and you lose, then you will get a strike. So just kind of let it go. Don't try to put it back on the air. And I said, okay. So in other words, while we're talking right now, their little computer software is listening to what's being said. So when somebody calls in, and they want to put some shit on the phone call because reasons, either they're a troll and they just want to try to fuck with you, or they're just kind of an asshole and they just want to say something stupid because they got like dementia of the brain and they want to say something crazy because why not? It's free crazy time. Well, that's good for them, but all the work it takes to put one of these things together and all the equipment and the sound and the video and stuff, all that goes out the window. Then next thing you know, you're suspended for 90 days like they did to ABL. And then ABL had to get permission to use his other channel. But he was still down for a week, and then his numbers went way down because a lot of people weren't going over to his gaming channel. So, so when people call in and they get pissed off if I don't put them on, well, tough shit. You do this. I mean, I can't tell you how many man hours goes into putting something like this together. Not like putting this together, but getting all the equipment right where you test it all and it works and everything works right. I remember when I first started, some guy wrote in the chat room, your sound sounds like shit. You shouldn't be on YouTube. And I'm like, I wrote back to him, fuck you. Fuck you, buddy. I mean, I don't give a shit.
Most of these trolls are guilty white liberals. And, when they call in and they're using, racial language, racially charged language, I don't understand how.
No, they're trying to pretend they're us, and then they're trying to tell, like, YouTube or something, because then they'll report you, right? They'll say, oh, look, see, this is what right-wingers do. Right-wingers talk like this, they sound like this, they act like this, they're a whole bunch of racists, homophobes, xenophobes, and you should get rid of this guy's site, because look at the kind of people he attracts. Well, meanwhile, it was him, and he was just pretending, but YouTube doesn't go, well, you're right, All they say is, hey, that host let that guy on the show, whether it's a real right winger or some liberal pretending to be a right winger to make conservatives sound bad. And YouTube says we don't give a shit one way or the other, jogger. You screwed up because you didn't keep that guy from getting on the site. So guess what? You're suspended for 90 days. And have a nice day.
Well, they want, I don't even know why I don't even know, it's funny because YouTube's so desperate to ban conservatives, but it seems like they're hesitant to do it at the same time, because let's say they were to deplatform, like, okay, I remember the Doctor of Common Sense from years ago, right?
Yeah, no, that was like a year and a half ago. 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But he used a lot of language. I mean, I loved him. Don't get me wrong. He was funny, but he used a lot of bad language and, ABL covered him once, why they banned him, and ABL, like when you watch ABL and he talks, he actually brings a very good perspective. He doesn't curse. He doesn't, not that I care about cursing. I mean, I curse too,
right.
But
that's just not who he is, I mean, he grew up in a tough,
exactly.
I guarantee you, I mean, if you listen to his story, he grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood. He grew up, working poor. He was in Appalachia, I think West Virginia or Virginia. So, I mean, I know he knows how to curse, but again, that's not what he wants to put across. And I agree with him. I love, he has a great point of view. I watch his shows. I don't call in as much anymore because I'm busy kind of doing this. But I used to call in every Wednesday and every Saturday, like clockwork. I was here. I had my, Yeti Blue mic set up, ready to go. You know, my USB port in the laptop, and I had my Skype ready to go, and you know, and he came on, and I would generally call within the first half hour, you know, and you know, and I do maybe like a 3 or 4 minute phone call and have a good conversation. But no, I agree, I like him. But go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. And you know what's funny? You know, like, you know, sometimes like, what was it? You know, like sometimes these people, like, you know, they you know, like, you know, say like your cell phone, right? You get like a phone call from a private number or a number you don't even know, you know. I don't answer those calls. I never do. But you know, it's funny, there's never a message left either, you know.
Right.
So it's like, I wonder why I get a call from a private number, you know, after I was on a live call-in show. You know what I'm saying? And now I don't know. It could be anything. You know what I'm saying? I don't take those calls. If I don't know the number, I don't take the call. You know, if it's a legitimate business or a legitimate person, they leave me a message. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you know, but you know, you know, these people just don't. You know what's funny? These paid trolls should be thankful for capitalism, because if capitalism didn't exist, they couldn't be hired by Soros and his minions. I don't know if it is Soros who pays these people, but you hear that a lot from, you know, other
well,
pundits,
it's obviously some left-wing groups. It's probably like, you know, Obama's got that, you know, it's been very much under the radar. Obama's got a big nonprofit political action committee kind of thing. He's working behind the scenes on a lot of shit. And of course the media doesn't cover it because, you know, they're carrying water for Barack Obama. But yeah, guys like him, guys like Soros, I mean, they got guys, you know, I mean, that one night you weren't on, but man, we got hit fast. It was fast and furious. And I've done some things to take care of that problem. And somebody gave me one of the guys on the chat gave me some advice. A guy, I think he had his own channel. And he told me how to break it up in the chat. You know, he says, okay, do this, and this will keep, because what they did like a big cut and paste thing on the chat. So it was like literally 30 messages just suddenly popped in the chat at once. I mean, literally, you should have seen it. You could ask Amy; she'll tell you. She was there that night. It was like bam, bop, 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 bop.
Well,
you know.
Yeah.
But those are obviously paid people. Those people. You know, they for some reason, I mean, they targeted I had less than 1,000 subs at the time. They targeted my site for some reason. I have no idea, but they did. And you know, and the phone calls that night too were indicative of who was of the chat too. Every phone call I got was some screwed up phone call. Every single phone call I got was screwed up. It was everyone. Everybody that called in was like, oh, now what? You know. So, you know,
well, you know, Carl, they want you to they want you to be discouraged. They don't want you to do what you're doing. You know, I mean.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is you say, oh fuck it, I'm not. The goal is for you to say, oh fuck it, I ain't gonna do it. You're pissed off and say, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna go home for the night. I'm not gonna do a live stream for the rest of the night. Fuck you. But well, you know, I'm kind of the opposite. Anybody who knows me from the courtroom will tell you that's not my personality. I mean, I'm just the opposite of that. You know, I kind of I kind of go the other direction. I go way the other direction, so I get in trouble a lot. So you know, there you go. So.
Well, I mean, it's like it's like, you know, it's funny because I've seen I've seen in past responses, you know, like in my comments and stuff, like somebody says I'm writing down, you know, this is funny stuff, I'm writing it down, yada yada, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if other people like took my one-liners and used them elsewhere, you know, or made, you know what I'm saying? I would not be surprised.
Well, first of all, if they do, they should at least give you the site. You know, hey, you know, because I'll do that. If I use somebody's line, I'll say, and sometimes when I write a comment and I quote somebody, I'll put like in brackets the name of the username of the person who came up with that thing. You know, because like hey, I didn't come up with that. You know, that's not. I'm going to give credit to the guy who did. It's like when you cite somebody like in a novel or something. You say, well, yeah, this guy said that. You know, put a footnote or something. I don't know. But if people are using one-liners, they should at least give you credit for it. I mean, you know.
Oh, I don't want credit. I don't need credit.
Well, they should at least say they should at least say who came up with the line. I mean, that's just courtesy. I mean, see, that's the thing. I think a lot of people today don't have like common courtesy. I think like Effie was touching on this earlier. It's just just be courteous. I had a teacher in Jesuit school, and his famous line was, "Don't be rude." Like if somebody, we used to always make fun of him for the way he said it too. He has a kind of a Texas accent. It was like, "Don't be rude." Kind of like the guy, almost like that teacher on South Park, like Mr. Mackey, the counselor. "Don't be rude." He'd say it just like that. But you're talking, Christ, 40 years ago. I still remember this line, and it's almost like do unto others. It's like just don't be rude. Just don't be rude to people. If you can, you can get through a day without being rude. Now if somebody gets in your face, tell them to go fuck themselves and whatever. But initially, don't be rude, and it's not a bad, not a bad value system to live by, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you've ever seen those videos where the conservative students are, they're waving the American flag and they're, like they're basic like the pro-life people who try to promote the pro-life message and all that. You have people like you could see that some of these people that walk by them that they're disgusted with them, but they don't get in their face. That they're just they're okay. They're not bothering me, so I'm minding my own business. And you can respect that. You know what I'm saying? But then you have every once in a while you get one of these crazy far leftist lunatics. Like that one guy who got punched in the face. I guarantee you that guy wouldn't have punched him if that guy, if that guy holding the sign had been looking, that guy wouldn't have tried to sucker punch him.
No,
that's cowardly. That's acting like a coward.
Oh, totally.
And what did he do? Yeah, and then it's like, what did the guy do? Did he make a difference? Did he make a change? Well, all he did was wind up ruining his life. He got it. Not the guy who got punched, but I'm saying the guy who threw the punch.
Right.
And it just, it doesn't make any, sense. But see, the left can't think past their own ideology. It's like, let's say, for example, like, let's say you take somebody with a leftist mentality, right? That let's say they're given 3 wishes, right? And let's say that they've got a debt that they're wanting to get rid of, right? Well, their first wish would probably be like, I wish that I had the money to take care of my debt, instead of, well, let me wish that I never made this mistake in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The more logical wish would be, let me learn from this. You know what I'm saying? At least that's what I would think. And let's say their second wish was, their house got flooded, right, and all this water in, right? Well, their second wish would probably be, I wish that there was no water in my house. But the more logical wish would be, I wish that this water had never come into my house. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But see, they don't think like that. They don't think like that.
They don't.
They just, I mean, and then let's say they say, well, I want to wish, let's say that their car is broken, right? And then their third wish would be, I wish I had, I wish my car never broke down. But then their wish would probably be like, I would like a more expensive car. Now, here's the fault in that wish, right? They wish for a more expensive car. Well, more headaches, more money,
right?
More potential for more problems, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which the more logical wish would be, I wish my car was never broken.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They don't think like that.
No, they don't.
They don't.
And I don't know where they got that from. I don't know where they said, I don't know. It's like it's not the American way. It's like, again, these freaks from the 60s, they got into academia and they just started saying, we're going to socially engineer our youth, just like, the communists did. And they said, okay, we're going to get into academia and start teaching, and then we're going to go to the school board meetings and get the right textbooks in, and nobody goes to the school board meetings, so you get 100 people show up at a school board meeting and say, we want this textbook, let's take a vote. Well, 100 to 0, and and then next your kids are being indoctrinated, and you wonder, how did that happen? Well, did you go to the school board meeting? No. Did you go to the city council meeting? No. Did you go to no? You didn't, no. Well, see, the thing about a democracy is, you have to be involved. This whole Democratic Republic thing only works if you're involved. Like Nixon called it, the silent majority. But we need not to be so silent. You got to go to the school board meetings. You got to go to the city council meetings, your town board meetings, your county commissioner meetings. that's where the real action happens. I mean, Congress, I mean, they only work 3 days a week. I mean, the real action, though, is down at the local level. And, and if you, I mean, I was town attorney, and, I mean, sometimes we'd have a lot of people there, like in a hot issue. Like I wrote up an English-only bill so that, all our documents would have to be only written in English. And, and for like that meeting, it was packed. We had a lot of people on both sides. The ACLU came up, and they were bitching and moaning, and we had a lot of immigrant rights groups there. We had a lot of locals, and it passed. My bill, my draft became the law for the town of Pahrump. But we had a lot of people there. But most nights though, you'd hardly have anybody there. But there were like important issues being discussed. Most people didn't even know where to go get the agenda. Now every county post, now it's online, but like years ago they posted like in the county courthouse, county building. But now you can go online, you can say, oh look, here's an agenda, here's what they're discussing, and they have to because we have open meetings law. You have to detail in the agenda exactly what it is, what you're looking for, and if it's an action vote, if you're going to vote on it or not, where you can make public comment, where you can comment on it, and most people just don't. I mean, look, most people don't take the time. I mean, I'm in a town, 37,000 people. The meeting's only twice a month, and maybe the biggest meeting we would ever have would be like, say, 1,000 people for a real controversial issue. Yeah. So, and then regular meeting, maybe 100 people. So 100 people are expressing their opinions, for the other 36,900. And the same thing with, hell, Clark County, their commissioner meetings, like, unless it's a real controversial issue, there's hardly anybody there. And that's Clark County. It's a population of like 2 to 3 million people. And I guarantee you, go to any county commissioner meeting in any county in this country. First of all, the rooms they use aren't even that big, okay, because they never expect a big crowd. And you look around, it's hardly anybody there. It's hardly anybody there. And, or if there are people there, it's always the same people. Retired people who just like going and bitching and moaning.
Yeah. Well, it's like conservative Mexican. Like I like conservative Mexican. He gives a lot of talking points, but the thing with him is he's all over the place with, like first he was promoting I'll get to how this relates to what we're talking about in a second, but he's always talking about like, well, content, conservative content creators don't push from the wall. Back when that Brian Kolfage thing went viral. They don't talk about it, yada, yada. But then he's talking about, he's bashing the Rhino Republicans, which I don't blame him, But it's like he's all over the place. And then he talks about, like, some of the attending some of the county meetings in his area, like some of the local meetings, right?
Yeah.
And, like how the Republicans don't support Trump. I mean, we all know this. We've known this ever since, Trump got elected. The rhinos are supposed to keep quiet.
I was at our state convention in Reno, and it took me yelling literally from the floor to this state Republican leader of our party for the state of Nevada. It took me yelling at him to get him to say Donald Trump's name, because he kept calling him the nominee. We have to support our nominee. It's our nominee, our nominee. Yeah. He wouldn't say Trump's name once. So I finally yelled out from the floor. Then a lot of other people joined in, and then finally he goes, okay, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. I'm like, Donald Trump, say his name, say his name. You should have heard me. I was like a real maniac. Say his name, Donald Trump, And, no, literally. I mean, I'm in a room full of like 2,000 people, and like I'm yelling out, say his name, Donald Trump. But I mean, so right at the state level, most of these people didn't support Donald Trump, and now they do because he's in power. But I guarantee you, when things look kind of bad, they'll be the first one to split.
Yeah. Well, it's like right now, everybody's complaining that, the Pentagon, and I think some rhinos were complaining about it too, where the Pentagon transferred $1 billion to Trump's border wall.
Yeah.
That's a freaking good thing, because now there's more money to get the wall, to continue building the wall. And I think because from what I understand, I think Kolfage has been down there too. He said, and then, the fact that he's got Bannon on his team, because Bannon can, I know I've said this before, but, Bannon can get through a lot of the paperwork and everything, because, Bannon can speed up the process of helping, get this border wall built on Kolfage's end, right? And let's say you got Trump's end, they're building the wall. I mean, they know this wall is getting built. The media won't even touch that story. They know that the wall is getting built. I mean, you literally have no, like when I was on your show last time, and I looked at that thing and I was showing you how Texas was building in the 30-mile, like the sections where the wall was breached. You have to go to like a local newspaper or a local news station to find out stuff like that. Online. Like there was a company that was saying that they'll build the wall for like a low price because I mean, I commend them for that. Thankfully, they do that. That they're willing to do that. But I mean, let's face it, they're probably looking to make a quick buck. But at least that they're willing to show that they're willing to work with Congress to help get the to get through the shenanigans, the paperwork, the approval. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, really, the only thing that they can do is they might be able to stop Trump on the environmental aspect end of it, but surprisingly, the Ninth Circuit sided with Trump on some of that stuff, and that was very strange. I mean, that's that. But hey, I commend them for that. I commend them for that. I mean, at least the Ninth Circuit shows that they can at least do something for us, the American people.
Right.
But Carl, I'm telling you, people are sick and tired of this. People are tired of these globalists trying to decide what's best for us. In this country, that kind of stuff ain't going to fly. I mean, they can get away with this stuff in Europe. Obviously, they are. I mean, obviously, they're starting to push back. They get away with this stuff in Canada. But, in America, people will die for their freedoms. People will. I mean, if it comes down to that, I mean, if it comes down to where people have nothing left but their freedom, people are going to, people will rise up. These globalists don't get this. They don't. They're so beyond. They're so drowned in their ideology of a one world government, and like you were saying too, and you hit the nail right on the head. They want to live to see their agenda pushed through, their vision for the world. And everybody always says, well, guilty. The white man, yada yada, is responsible for centuries of oppression all over the world. Well, guess what? It was the white man in power who had the money to create the misery in the first place. So these globalists have a lot more. No, I'm serious.
Right.
So these globalists have a lot more in common with the white man who ruined the world than people like us do. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, these are the same people who, it's like what was it? Martin Brodell who said it. I think it was a mother of some very powerful, like, I don't know if it was Rothschild or Rockefeller, but, he was saying that the mother of one of these wealthy, her sons who were wealthy, she said, if my sons wanted peace, there would be peace.
Right.
Obviously that's true, but these people don't want peace. They want, Carl, it's funny. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bounce around, but, when I was watching an episode one time of the Hercules, right? Of Kevin Sorbo's Hercules, right?
Okay.
And it makes sense, and I'm going to use this because it makes perfect sense, right? The gods of Olympus were immortal. They basically don't know what to do with their mortality. So what do? They cause problems for mankind. They cause chaos and suffering because it gives them something to do. They get a kick off it, right?
Yeah.
Well, these globalists, it's the same manner with these globalists. They're so rich and powerful. They're so out of touch with people like us. They have nothing better to do with their wealth. So what do? They create problems in the world, and see how people, and they see how people, respond to it, and they see how people do things, and they basically just, and they see how people do things, and it's like they just don't care about the well-being of other people, and it just doesn't make it, and that's kind of how it, all fits together.
Are you okay over there? It sounds like everything okay?
Yeah.
Yes? Everything okay?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, no, I'm good. But they just don't. They just don't. They just don't really figure out. They just don't figure out, you know, that this, you know, they, how do I say?
Hey, do you need to take? Hey, do you need to take care of that? I got some stuff going on in the house there.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna, yeah, no, I'm gonna, but what is it? I lost track what I was saying.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good. Hey, I got a house too. I understand. He's like, what are you still doing on the phone? Get off the phone. Hey, what the hell are you doing up so late?
Yeah.
Hey, I got one of those at home too, man. You don't have to explain.
Oh yeah.
Totally get it.
But yeah, no, I just, you know, I try to wait till everybody's asleep before I talk.
I hear you. I hear you.
But anyway, but you know, and you know, you stop and think about, you know, these globalists that, you know, it's the same manner as the gods of Olympus. You know, they have so much wealth, they've acquired so much wealth. It's like, what are their goals? They have no other goals. So what do? They just create misery on this planet to see what they can get away with, see what they're able to do, see what they, you know, how they can, you know, basically, you know, dictate what we do and say. You know, and it's kind of sad to have that kind of mentality because people don't really, you know, people just don't think about that kind of thought process in these wealthy ultra class elite. You know, I mean, you know, if these globalists wanted to, they could ruin Kamala Harris's reputation really easily. They could destroy, you know, any of these Hollywood celebrity types. You know what I'm saying? They could just, you know, release a bunch of stuff on them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, and it's like they do this just to see what they can do. You know, and it's like how we were talking about the mentality of the Joker last time. You know, even though that obviously the Joker is not a real character, the ideology that the Joker functions on is very real indeed. You know, where people don't really care to have the money. They just care to see what they can do, how they can get away with it. It's kind of like those hackers, you know, like you have those hackers, and you still have them. You know, they don't, you know, they're breaking the someone's account, not just to get the money, but just, you know, to see what they can do. You know,
you're kind of losing you there. Kind of losing your reception there.
Oh, hold on.
There you go, right there. You're good. Right
is that
there.
Better?
Yep, right there. You're good, right
Okay.
there.
Okay. You know, they don't understand that, you know, people can, you know, it's like they want to see, it seems like their motive now is, let's see how many people in the world are stupid and willing to vote their freedoms away, you know, and it's working because, you know, you have people now, there was that thing where people, I think it was sorry about that interruption, I do apologize. You know, they had that thing where people were asking, you know, what was it, the kids in the school where, you know, would they feel more comfortable if they gave up their freedoms, right? And I think a parent was very outraged at that. I don't remember that. I remember hearing about that story, but I don't remember much about how it all went down, you know. But you know, they're you know, that's actually willing to, you know, they're actually willing to, you know, do that, you know, you know, they're actually willing to, you know, see how what they can push, what they can't push, obviously, you know, and it just, you know, it's like, how did we even get to this point? You know, how did we get to this point, and how did we wind up, you know, in the situation we're in? Well, gee, every generation, as you know, gets dumbed down, but they wind up picking up some kind of smart, you know, it's like they kind of changed the definition of smart, you know. And yes, Lilo, I am very much so. I was reading one of Lilo's comments, but you know, they've changed what it means to be smart, you know. And again, they've taken wisdom out of the equation of being smart, because wisdom is a form of being smart, you know.
Right.
And they just don't, you know, they've taken away from these schools and these kids the ability to see beyond what their decisions do and how it affects them. That's literally what they have done. You have, somebody told me one time, oh, well, 911 is free, fire department's free, so why should one 911 call put someone in a bankruptcy? Which, I can understand because, there are people who have literally lost their houses based on medical costs. Okay, I get it. But you know what is good about our capitalist system? There are programs in place that help people to pay their bills, and you set up what's called a payment plan. And again, if these progressives were not so blind to the hatred of capitalism, they would see that there are things like this out there, that literally help people pay their bills, and they'll even work with you based on your income,
Yeah.
But again, they can't see this. They don't see this, And I'll tell you, I worry way more about a civil war starting before socialism ever gets hold of this country, because I don't think people would just willingly give up their freedoms. Because I've seen stories where people say, and I've had people respond to me in comments where they say, oh, Americans have become too complacent and they just, they're not going to do anything about it. They'll accept rule. Well, I don't think so. I don't think it's like that. And it depends on how bad things get, if you take away from a bunch of people who have nothing and you deplatform someone because you disagree with their opinion and you destroy their families, well, guess what? You don't know what that person will be capable of doing, and that's not a good situation to be in, it's like when Obama, the IRS under Obama, when they were targeting conservative groups, in different, what was it? I don't think Judicial Watch was a part of that, because Judicial Watch was big, and if they started trying to go after Judicial Watch for IRS, tax income stuff like that, people would have noticed big time, but some of those smaller, like I think it was like conservative groups or something like that, that that they were like, well, they were finding like things that they had done wrong, and they were taking minor tax evasion offenses that would have probably resulted in maybe a fine or something like that. And they were trying to like prop up these outrageous charges on small things,
Right.
And it just, and people just don't understand, especially the far left. They don't understand that this kind of stuff is unconstitutional, don't get me wrong. If someone is not paying their taxes, yes, you go about it, but there is a what's called by the book procedure. You find them, you either garnish their wages or you find them and make them pay what they owe. You know what I'm saying? But you don't sit here and try to, put them in jail for the rest of their life or, something like, or like shut down their entire platform because they haven't paid, a small tax. But but again, they can't see this. They don't understand this.
Right,
and the fact that these Democrats are getting a hold of Trump's tax returns, this is unconstitutional. This stuff happens in a banana republic.
Well, it's freaking stupid because, they're going into his tax returns from obviously before he was president, and it's like, it's none of their damn business, okay?
Yeah.
Look, it's up to the voters to decide whether they want to vote for a guy who does or doesn't release their tax returns. He chose not to.
Yeah.
And people voted for him. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Now if it cost him the election, then the next guy would be like, oh, I better release my tax returns. But it didn't cost him the election. He won. He's like, hey, and then when Rachel Maddow got the 2005, all it showed was that he paid $39 million in taxes. Well, good. She was hoping it would show like, he scammed the IRS. He didn't pay anybody anything. He had a big loss carry forward. But you're allowed to use a loss carry forward. Oh God, 10 years, 20. I can't remember. I think up to 10 years for a loss carry forward, and that's what he did. He did a loss carry forward for up to like 10 years, and he deducted it off his taxes. And the reason why you're allowed to do loss carry forward, the policy behind that is that we want you to take risks to go into business, to start a new business, to create jobs, and then that if you lose a bunch of money as a result, the IRS tax code says, okay, we'll allow you to take that as a loss, not just in this year, because obviously your losses would exceed how much money you made, but you can carry it forward for up to next, I think it's up to the next 10 years. And the policy behind that is what we want capitalists to take risks, create jobs, and once in a while when they lose, they know they can get some cover, and they can deduct that off their income. They can't. It's not deducted off their taxes, it's deducted off their income, which is a big difference.
Yeah.
So they still have an income, and they still have to pay taxes on that income, less the loss carry forward. Like Trump did, he paid $39 million that year that Rachel exposed that 2005 tax return. But I tell you what, let me let you go because I'm going to cover this one story I got up there right now. I just want to cover this electoral college story I got up here right now.
All right, cool.
But hey, man, thank you so much for the phone call, man. That was like excellent. I mean,
always.
No, always. It's like you talk about stuff that I don't know about. So when you say you learned something, I learned something when you call in. So I'm totally cool.
You know what's funny, Carl? Just real quick before I let you go. It's funny because sometimes I'll put in notes in the chat, and it's like it says anyone want to call before I talk to Carl, and they're like, no, you call, and then it's like. Because like I said, I want to give everybody a chance. I don't want to like.
I saw you doing that tonight, and they said, "No, go for it." It was like, "Yeah, no, that's cool." No, we got a real really good group of people in our chat room here. Really good group of people. Everybody's like really cool with each other. So I'm real happy with the people we have in our chat room. It's a real good, high quality group of people. I'm very happy with it. To be honest with you.
I just wish Nunya was back, but
I see her every once in a while. She was on the other night. She stopped by for a bit. She goes, I gotta go, and I said, okay, cool. But she came on for like a few minutes, but we all got stuff going on in our lives, so it's like anything else, so
yeah.
But anyway, all right, man. Hey, have a good one. I'll catch you the next time, and hopefully I'll still see you in the chat.
Oh yeah, definitely. Take care and have a good week.
Oh yeah, no, I'll probably be doing Axe is doing a live stream tomorrow night for sure. So I'm not going to bounce on top of him because I'll probably be watching him. And but I'll probably I generally work around his live streams. I kind of see when he's coming on, when he's not coming on, and I try to work around that. So sometimes I come on later, and sometimes I come on earlier. All depends. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna be in court all day, so he'll probably have his stream on before I get home. So if I do one, it might be a late one. But sometimes he does like two. Like he'll do like an early one and a late one. So I just kind of work around it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
All right,
cool.
man.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, have a good one.
All right.
All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
And that was the great douchebag. Of course, everybody knows that. Is no introduction required. Excellent phone call as usual. Brings up a lot of good topics. Definitely broadens the conversation. Always fantastic, honestly. And okay, so I got a story up here. And Democrats lead states push to bypass electoral college. Kind of interesting. By Valerie Richardson of the Washington Times. Again, call-in number is 775-273-8970. If you want to call in while I'm reading the story, that's fine. I'll take the call. But yeah, I just want to cover this story. You notice I put a couple of headlines up while we were talking. Let's see. So Democratic presidential hopefuls, led by Senator Elizabeth Warren, have touched off a national debate by taking aim at ending the Electoral College. But state legislators are way ahead of them. 3 states, Colorado, Delaware, and New Mexico, have enacted legislation this year to circumvent the Electoral College by joining the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the constitutionality of what they're doing. I have no idea. I haven't deep dove into it. It's probably something I probably need to do and kind of see exactly what they're doing and what they're not doing. But anyway, 2 Democratic-controlled legislatures in Maine and Nevada have passed such bills out of committees. State legislators also have laid the groundwork for lowering the voting age, an idea championed last week by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. California Democrat with measures in 23 states to pre-register voters at age 16 or 17. Now, see, there's your voting fraud. Okay, this is where you're going to get voting fraud. Because this registration thing, oh God, you can see where it's going to go. It's going to go where, like, giving illegal aliens driver's licenses, and then they have Social Security numbers, and they register to vote, and nobody knows that they're illegal or not, and then they vote anyway. Same thing. These young kids doing this pre-registration, whatever. And next thing you know, they're actually voting illegally, but actually voting. In California and Oregon, constitutional amendments Constitutional amendments have been introduced this year to lower the voting age. Both ideas have picked up steam on the left in recent weeks as Democrats turn their focus to defeating President Trump in 2020. They see their goal as more attainable with an influx of teenage voters without the Electoral College. You know, the funny thing is, and I'm sure they don't get it, is that they have to get, younger, less experienced people who are willing to believe in what they're saying because they haven't been around long enough to know, gee, what they're saying, we tried that before, it doesn't work. So I mean that's how empty the Democrats are right now as far as with policies and goals and things of that sort, any kind of specifics, because they have to get some young stupid kid. And I'm sorry, I was a young stupid kid. I guarantee you, when I was 21, I knew 100 times, 1,000 times more than I knew when I was 16. And when I was 31, I knew 1,000 times more than I knew when I was 21. So the idea that we're going to lower the voting age to 16, I mean, that is really terrible. That they have to reach out to some uninformed young kids who aren't paying attention to politics, to vote for them because anybody who's been around for more than a few years is like, well, gee, that sounds kind of crazy. But a young kid's like, oh, that sounds good. Let's do that. Free lunch, yay! Let's vote for that, yay! Yeah, man. I don't even know what young kids say. I was going to say, like, radical. That's because I'm dating myself, But anyway, make no mistake, this is a Democratic power play, said Colorado Republican strategist Dick Wadhams. They are still so stunned by Donald Trump, and they are hell-bent to correct what they see as a stolen election. Ms. Warren sparked the Electoral College pile-on at a CNN town hall March 18th by declaring, every vote matters, and the way we can make that happen is that we can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College. Other Democrats chimed in, of course. Kamala Harris opened the discussion. Beto O'Rourke, idea has a lot of wisdom. He's want to talk. Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Hopefully he gets out of the race soon. I really hate trying to pronounce this guy's name. Another presidential candidate tweeted that the Electoral College has got to go, or has to go. Cue the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, a proposed agreement drafted in 2006 that wouldn't eradicate the Electoral College but would render it irrelevant by requiring state electors to cast their ballots for a presidential candidate who wins the popular vote nationwide. The pact is slated to kick in when states accounting for 270 electoral votes join the movement. The number reached is 181 on March 15th when Colorado Governor Jared Polis, a Democrat, signed the compact, making his the 12th state along with the District of Columbia to agree to the national popular vote. Although the movement bills itself as bipartisan and has received Republican support in the past, the compact comprises only liberal-leaning jurisdictions: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington State, as well as the District of Columbia. In Colorado, the measure was approved on party-line votes in both chambers of the legislature with no Republican support. No Republicans voted for the New Mexico bill either, but is now awaiting the signature of Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, a Democrat. Governor John Carney, a Democrat, is scheduled to sign Senate Bill 22 on Thursday. Only 2 Republican legislators joined Democrats in passing the measure to join the compact, according to Legiscan. National Popular Vote senior consultant Patrick Rosenstyle, who calls himself a conservative Republican, trapped behind a blue wall in Minnesota, said the partisan view of the Electoral College, there we go, has shifted over time. At one point, Republicans complained that the Democrats had a lock on the system. The National Popular Vote movement has never been a partisan movement. It is a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats. See, now here's the deal. Republicans, when they realized the Democrats had a lock on this, they thought, oh, you got a lock on this Electoral College, we got to go to national vote. See, that's the whole thing. It goes back and forth. And it generally, again, it goes back and forth. You don't just go back. You don't have to go back very far. Okay, right now we have Trump. Well, then before that we had 8 years of Obama. Then before that we had 8 years of Republican George Bush. Then 8 years of Democrat Bill Clinton. 12 years of Bush Reagan. 4 years of Democrat Carter. 8 years of Ford Nixon. 8 years of Johnson Kennedy. 8 years of Eisenhower. And then for a 12. 13, well then 16 years of Roosevelt, Truman. And then before that you had Hoover. So I mean, it goes back and forth, and that's the whole point. It's like, you got to be patient. You may have to wait 8 years or 4 years to change who's in power in the White House, but it's okay We will survive. We have survived this long. You know, when Barack Obama got elected, some people were like, "Oh no!" It's like I'm like, "Hey man, relax. It's it's 4 years, 8 years. We're gonna, 8 years from now we'll be looking back, going, well, okay, we fixed it. And then I'm sure when George W. Bush got elected in 2000, all the Democrats, oh my God, no, and of course Democrats now when Trump's elected, oh no, well, 8 years from now I'm sure it'll be like, well, okay, it wasn't that bad. And that's the way it always is. You look back, well, it wasn't that bad. So, that's the greatness of our democratic republic. Nobody really destroys the country, okay? They don't blow it up. I mean, they make changes here and there, and they do affect people. They affect people's jobs and homes and their livelihoods, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't break it apart. So if you want to go to this national vote where you have a tyranny of the majority, that will break it apart. We will cease to be a true democratic republic. People who live in the flyover states are going to be ruled by 51% of the people in this country who live. Now, it would be different. It was like 51% ruling over 49%, and it was like spread out, right? So you said 51% of the country ruling over 49% of the country. Okay, that's not so bad if it's like it's equally balanced throughout all the states, through all the regions, actually, more importantly, of the country, because different regions have different interests. But the problem is, it's not going to be spread out over the regions. It's going to be region specific. You have the West Coast and the East Coast ruling over the rest of the country. That's bad because people on the West Coast and the East Coast have far different values, needs, desires, issues that are concerns that are important to them than people in the middle of the country. Well, not even the middle, the whole rest of the country. So regionally, you're going to have a lot of animosity, a lot of complaining, a lot of just outright anger and bitterness, and that's not good. So again, if it was 51-49, it was spread evenly across the different regions of this country. Well, that probably wouldn't be so bad. But it's going to be a regional power shift. It's going to be a regional power grab. And the people whose interests on the coast, who have different interests, like people on the coast, for instance, like import-export. Okay, they don't care about trade deficits. Trade deficits don't hurt the coastal people. If anything, they help because of the port cities, and they make a lot of money on it, on importing foreign goods, etc. But the people who have jobs in the interior of the country, whose jobs now vanish, who have no jobs, that they have different interests. Okay, so there you go. So that's where it gets really bad. And 230 years, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Republicans bitching about it when the Democrats look like they were always going to win general elections and presidential elections. They're the same idiots that the Democrats are now. Again, just wait 4 years, wait 8 years. It's not going to be that bad. It never has. Hey, we just went through 8 years. We just went through 8 years of Obama, and trust me, I suffered through that recession as much as anybody. I mean, trust me, I did. I was small business person. I'm self-employed. So, I mean, trust me, it was rough. But guess what? I'm still here. Okay? I'm here. If it like the strong wind, if it bends you, it doesn't break you, you're okay. Well, it bent me. Okay, I'll give you that much. But I'm still here. Here I am. Hello. I'm healthy. I have food. I have transportation. I have a business. It didn't destroy the country. So to the Democrats with Trump, okay, 8 years from now, you're going to look back and go, well, okay. And every 8 years is the same thing. So to the Democrats who are looking really short-sighted, I mean, just really, really short-sighted. Stop just thinking about this election. Think about the country as a whole and going forward. I mean, the 12 years of Reagan-Bush was really not indicative of how it works. It's just that, Dukakis was a terrible candidate, and, everything was kind of going okay, and Bush was an excellent candidate, had an excellent campaign team behind him, and was able to run the numbers. I mean, he was 17 points down in I think, August, if I'm not mistaken, to Dukakis in 1988, and he came back and won it by, I think, 3 or 4 points. I think it was like 3 points, 3 or 4 points. So, I mean, that doesn't really, it generally goes every 8 years. But, I mean, that was a little bit different. And Bush was no Ronald Reagan anyway. I mean, he's an establishment Republican. He voted for, he pushed through a tax hike with Democrat support. And, it probably cost him the election in '92. Plus his handling of the Iraq War, even though it was perfect, it wasn't messaged well because he didn't think he had to. Nixon had a piece of advice. He goes, because the problem he had with Bush was that Bush never seemed to have any values. Like he never had any, like he was very just pragmatic. And again, that's good in a way, but what Nixon said was, a president doesn't have to have values, but he better damn well pretend he does. In other words, people want to see, what do you believe in? What's your belief? It's not just pragmatism. You have some values that you're working policy towards to achieve, to obtaining. But yeah, so let's see. Let's jump over to let's see real quick. Republicans call for Schiff to resign. There we go. Reading of dossier changed everything. Republicans call for Schiff to resign. Again, this is by Rowan Scarborough of the Washington Times. Donald Trump supporters caught up but not charged in a 34-month Russia investigation, point to March 20th as the day their troubles really started. That's when, and I think I covered this story yesterday. This was part of the E edition of the newspaper. So yeah, let me jump back over to the. Let's see, let me jump over here. Where is it? All right, there's a good story. 4% mortgages back, meaning housing sales will be going up this spring, which is excellent news. But why are you looking at that? Let me see. Oh, well, you're not going to be able to look at that because I got to bounce over on something else. All right, let me do this. There we go. You guys aren't having to just, watch this stuff bounce back and forth here. But let me pull this up here. Let's see what we find. Okay, actually, here's a commentary by Monica Crowley of the Washington Times. You see her on Fox News a lot. I think this is a good story worth looking at. So let's take a look at this one. Boom. All right, the real Obama-Clinton cover-up by Monica Crowley. It must be investigated, going where the facts may lead. So again, Monica Crowley, Washington Times. Where does Donald Trump go to get his presidency back? After 2 years of ominous suspicion, $30 million, endless warrants and subpoenas, dishonest media hysteria, and too many wrecked reputations and lives, Special Counsel Robert Mueller found that neither Trump nor his associates colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election, and determined that no further investigation on obstruction of justice was warranted, and the Department of Justice concurred. Even some of the president's fiercest enemies were forced to concede that the Mueller report was a complete vindication of the president and his team. Oh, by the way, call-in number, I know I kind of went off on some people earlier, but it's not the people who are in the chat right now. So if you want to call in, 775, he's like, shit, I don't want to call. He'll yell at me. But anyway, if you want to call in, 775-273-8970. There you go. So, yeah. But let's see. So anyway, even some of the president's fiercest enemies were forced to concede that the Mueller report was a complete vindication of the president and his team. The resistance lived by the Mueller, and they've died by the Mueller. That's a good line. I like that. I'm using that. All right. So they are now, however, too deeply invested in their mission to destroy President Trump to permit anything, above all, the truth, to change their course. They've already moved the goalpost again to keep the investigations going. What they have done, explaining the 2016 election results with the malicious Trump-Russia collusion lie, goes way beyond sore loser syndrome. Yeah, it was, in fact, an attempted coup to remove the duly elected president by weaponizing some of the most fearsome arms of the U.S. government, and the conspirators enjoyed an invaluable constant assist from their media wingmen. Totally agree. In other words, this was more than just like, well, we hate this guy and, we're going to make his life miserable. No, they were actually trying to get rid of him. They were trying to undo an election. And for McCabe to say, well, I thought, my God, the president might be an agent of Russia. This is really important. I gotta like do whatever I gotta do. Well, that's bullshit. Again, a big meeting he left out of his book was a meeting he had with Bruce Orr and Lisa Page. And because Lisa Page confirmed Bruce Orr's statements. When Bruce Orr handed off the dossier to the FBI, he met with Andrew McCabe. And he goes, hey, I got this dossier. It's written by this guy named Christopher Steele, a former MI6 dude. But just to let you know, my wife, I got it from my wife, or Steele, or a combination thereof, and my wife works for this company called Fusion GPS, and they've been hired by the Clinton campaign to get op research. And as you know, Mr. McCabe, op research doesn't necessarily mean it's true, and it's not an intelligence report. Yeah, the guy used to work for MI6, but hey, just let you know we got some problems with this guy, and also let you know he really hates Donald Trump. I mean, he's just hell-bent on hating him. How neutral and fair he's going to be, I don't know. I think he's jumping around a lot. So you might want to check this out. Now, I'm going to give it to you because, it's given to me and, oh, shit, but you need to vet it, okay? And McCabe's like, yeah, don't worry, we got it from here. Okay, well, got it from here meant like, yeah, thanks, Bruce, see you later. Keep talking to Steele and, keep him in the loop. Meanwhile, the FBI takes the report, they don't vet it, and they go, hey, look at this. Oh, yeah, and they take it to a FISA court, and then they try to peddle it to the press, and, McCain gets involved. They probably gave it to McCain to give back to them and try to get a story out of it. Nobody would take it until finally BuzzFeed took it. But only remember, BuzzFeed wasn't even going to print it until they had a hook. And Clapper is probably like, how come you're not printing this? Hey, man, it's not credible. Like, this stuff is bullshit. Laura. Oh, hey, Laura, hold on. Let me see here. But there you go. But yeah, if anybody wants to call in, again, I won't yell at you, so you can call in. But anyway, the entire Russia conspiracy orchestrated by high-ranking figures in the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton campaign, and broader leftist network was designed to undermine and then destroy the crass interloper who posed an immediate existential threat to all of them. They had to crush him before he could crush them. It was also designed to provide maximum distraction away from their potential crimes. A multi-year special counsel investigation of a sitting president for something that never happened would grant the actual plotters enough time to cover their tracks and run out the clock on various statutes of limitations so they could escape prosecution. Ensuring that these corrupt players don't slip justice is critical to rightfully restoring Mr. Trump's presidency and the integrity of the DOJ, FBI, and other institutions which may be implicated. That means investigating everyone who carried out the treacherous acts which they've been desperately trying to bury. There's some points she brings up. Actual Russian collusion. Mrs. Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee enlisted a left-wing opposition research firm, Fusion GPS, which hired a former British spy and a rabid Trump hater, Christopher Steele, who sought dirt on Mr. Trump from shadowy Russian contacts. Actually, they were like probably Russian KGB people who were just looking to give off information on Trump just to kind of screw with the election and screw with Trump, etc. Mr. Steele then compiled a phony dossier on Mr. Trump based on the unsubstantiated, uncorroborated nonsense from those sources and helped to pass it off to pivotal figures in the Obama administration and friendlies in the media. With the lies teed up, these figures weaponized them, including using them to secure warrants to spy on the Trump campaign from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which was not told that the evidence was a pack of political smears derived, at least in part, from Russian sources. The use of individuals is another point. The use of individuals, Stefan Halper, Joseph Misfud, with known ties to foreign intelligence to target Trump associates. Right, they were like plants. They're like, hey, we got some emails. You want to buy them? It was like total entrapment stuff. Okay, with known ties to foreign intelligence to target Trump associates raises questions about the role of John Brennan. If a CIA director had a hand in domestic political spying, it would constitute epic illegality. At the highest levels, the Obama administration wiretapped American citizens, including political opponents, illegally unmasked General Michael Flynn and leaked his name to the press. Later, the former FBI director and his deputy, Andrew McCabe, appeared to have set Flynn up in an interview with Trump-hating, now fired FBI official Peter Strzok. The late 2015, early 2016 origins of the Russian hoax, including the original DOJ FBI probe documents and later the revised Mueller scope memo written by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, which authorized the special counsel fishing expedition. The corrupt handling of the Clinton email server case by the DOJ and FBI. The broader criminal leaks of selective information excuse me, to journalists who were more than willing to serve as tools of the conspiracy. All of this and more cries out for a thorough investigation. Fortunately, Attorney General William Barr views his top priority as restoring institutional trust by sanitizing the DOJ and FBI of their rampant politicalization and corruption. That means launching a blue ribbon investigation to go wherever the facts may lead. Among those who may want to put their attorneys on speed dial, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, former acting Attorney General Sally Yates, Mr. Strzok, former DOJ lawyer Lisa Page, DOJ official Bruce Orr, and his Fusion GPS employee wife, Nellie, Mr. Brennan, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, former U.S. Ambassador Samantha Power, former NSC Advisor Ben Rhodes, and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. And then there are two previously sacred cows at the top, former President Barack Obama and Mrs. Clinton. As they first wrote in February 2018, high-ranking officials and other major players in those agencies, which Obama oversaw, are increasingly embroiled in the growing scandal. Given the tight control Obama exercised over every part of his administration and agenda, the idea that any of these appointees and loyalists freelance their activities without at least his tacit approval or that of his White House strains credulity. In other words, what they were undertaking was pretty radical. They were going to spy on an opposition party's campaign. You know, the president in the White House, President Obama, excuse me a sec. The president of the White House, President Obama, is a Democrat. Well, the campaign they're spying on is there's a Republican. So if you think that these guys, these civil servants, who are so afraid of losing their job and their benefits, to the point where McCabe was trying to hang on to keep his job so he could keep his benefits, you know, that they're just going to, like, go off and do this on their own without the approval of the White House? Because, like, if they don't get his approval, if they don't get the president's approval and they're doing this, and he finds out, he'll fire all of them and they lose all their pensions. There's no way these civil servants were going to risk their pensions to do something without the express approval of the White House, namely the President of the United States, Barack Obama. They're civil servants. You have to understand the mindset. They care about their retirement. Again, McCabe was worried about his retirement. Strzok was worried about his retirement. These are civil servants. If you think they were so worried then, they were definitely worried when they started the investigation. So unless they had the president's approval, there's no way in hell these civil servants, who care more about their pension than they care about their country, would have ever undertaken this kind of investigation without President Obama's direct approval. No way. No way. Let's see. And then there were our two previously sacred cows at the top. Former, I already got that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Indeed, this investigation should be conducted expeditiously before applicable statute of limitations expire. If any of these individuals have committed crimes but are permitted to escape because of endless Mueller DOJ stalling, the damage to the county will be exponential. The country will be exponentially worse. It's time to fight fire with fire. We deserve answers to the sinister fraud perpetrated upon the legitimate president, his voters, our institutions, and the country at large. We must pursue these public enemies with the same tireless vigor they deployed to target Mr. Trump. Their malignant lie has been exposed. Now the consequences must begin. Again, Monica Crowley. Totally agree with everything she just said. Totally agree with what she says. I hope Axe is going to be... Whoa, what happened? Okay, let me look through the chat here. Hold on. Pray for Axe. Oh, what? Who? What? Let's see. Pray for Axe and his dog Otto. Emergency visit to vet. Oh, okay. Layla. Okay. Let's see. Hope Axe is going to be okay. I like Otto. Yeah, Otto's the new one, the new dog. Let's see. All right, so you got me scared. I thought like something wrong with Axe. Okay, so you got to take the. Well, yeah, you could take the dog to the vet. He had his ears clipped or something before? Because I remember he had that thing around his head or something. There's something wrong with him. Yeah. let's see. Great douchebag. A dog taking a dump on someone's lawn could run the House Intel Committee better than Adam Schiff for brains. Very good. I agree. But anyway, let's see here. It's 10:53 my time. Been on for about 3 hours, 20 minutes or so. So I think I'm going to call it a night. Let me get back on here. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Boom. Anyway, there I am. So, boom. But yeah, so I think I'm going to call it a night for tonight. I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat. I want to thank the intelligent calls we got from Effie Real and Mr. Douchebag, and to the other not so intelligent calls, well, no thanks. But anyway, and to everybody in the chat, much appreciated. Enjoyed reading a lot of the chat while I was doing this. If I didn't give you a shout out on some of this stuff, I apologize. But really, really good conversations tonight. Really good stuff, and I just want to say thanks to everybody. So, with that said, I want everybody to have a great night. If I can write that in here. And free spanks to everyone. Stay strong and be safe. Yeah, just, hey, thanks to everybody, and shout out to everybody in the chat. And like I said, I'll see about doing a live, oh, thanks, Lee. See about doing a live stream tomorrow night. I know Axe is on tomorrow night, so I just got to kind of see when he's going to be doing his and stuff, and kind of work around his, either like before his or after. Probably after, because like I said, I'm going to be in court pretty late tomorrow, but I'll see. But anyway, thanks everybody, and till next time, thank you from Carl's Opinion. You like the video, hit the like button. You like it a lot, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. So everybody, have a great night, and take care. Bye-bye.